They all have the same illness, Part 2. They all have the same illness, Part 2. The moon hung in the middle of the sky, and the people who had been admiring the lanterns in the city had returned home. The street was now much quieter. Princess Danyang sat in her room doing some needlework when she suddenly remembered something. Raising her head, she asked Diana, "Has Jiaro still not returned?" Diana glanced out at the courtyard and found it completely silent. Only the manor's lanterns were shining brightly. "I do not think that she has returned yet, otherwise, there should have been some movement." Princess Danyang furrowed her brow. How could she be returning so late? Could something have happened? Diana covered her mouth and smiled. She went to look at the lanterns with the members of Marquis Gu's manor. It might be that she would go directly to Marquis Gu's manor if it seemed like it was getting too late. It's not like she hasn't stayed there before. Princess Danyang heard this and stood up. She wouldn't. If she was not going to return for the night, she would have sent someone to let us know. More importantly, in the past, she was staying in Marquis Gu's manor because she had no other choice. How could an innocent girl casually stay in another person's home? Jiaro is not someone who is so lacking in propriety. She walked toward the courtyard, and Diana quickly followed behind her. Where will Princess be going? I'm going to take a look at the second gate. If Jiaro still hasn't returned, send someone to Marquis Gu's manor to inquire. Master and servant walked over to the second gate and suddenly saw a thin, old man in the distance, and he was slowly pacing back and forth. Princess Danyang immediately recognized that it was none other than Yin Yang. She walked over and greeted him, former Prime Minister. Yin Yang cupped his hands. What has Princess come out for? Princess Danyang said, I heard that Jiaro still hasn't come back, and I was a little worried, thus I came out to receive her. Is former Prime Minister also here to wait for her? Yin Yang did not think that Princess Danyang would come out so late at night for Yin Jiaro's sake. She had a bit of a loving sister-in-law's heart. He cast his cloudy gaze toward the outer study. The lights were shining brightly, but there was absolutely no sign of any movement from Yin Shuo. In his eyes, was Yin Jiaro still his younger sister? Yin Yang let out a sigh. Forget it. I heard some news that His Majesty was accosted by assassins while out for a patrol tonight. Based on what I heard from the palace servants, His Majesty was with people from Marquis Gu's manor, and Jiaro also happened to be with them. Princess Danyang was shocked and said, Did anything happen to His Majesty? Did anything happen to the people from Marquis Gu's manor or Jiaro? Yin Yang said, His Majesty has already returned to the palace. Though he suffered some injuries, his life is not in danger. As for the others, that is less clear. I have already sent someone to Marquis Gu's manor to pick up Jiaro. Princess, you can be at ease and go back. Yin Jiaro had once told Princess Danyang that her father and elder brother were very controlling, very rarely allowing her to go out. They would also make use of her to accomplish some of their goals in court. Yin Yang treated her a bit better than Yin Shuo, but it was really just a bit. In essence, they were the same. However, what Princess Danyang saw tonight was an elderly father worried about his daughter, as he paced back and forth in the middle of the night while waiting for his daughter to come back. It was possible that as a person grew older, they would finally realize how important family was, or it was possible that Yin Shuo's rebelliousness allowed him to notice Yin Jiao's good points, and that was what made him change. She felt a little uncomfortable, thinking about how she was once doted on by her father emperor but now had nothing. Her voice was choked up. I will wait for her with former Prime Minister. If Jiaro is hurt, I will take care of her with my maidservant. Yin Yang thought for a bit and found this reasonable, thus he did not stop her. Not long later, the sound of footsteps came from outside, as servants led a carriage into the manor. The two immediately stepped forward and saw Yin Jiaro step out of the carriage without any injuries. Not only was she not hurt, but she seemed a little annoyed. Jiao, you weren't hurt, right? Why do you look so angry? Yin Jiaro saw Princess Danyang first, then saw that Yin Yang was also standing behind her, and she could not help but freeze. Father. Yin Yang slightly nodded, then turned to walk toward the main hall. Since you aren't hurt, let's go inside to speak. Princess Danyang guessed that he wanted to know what happened tonight, thus she went with Yin Jiaro to the main hall. The servants brought out 3 cups of hot tea, and after Yin Jiaro drank some tea, Yin Yang slowly started speaking. I heard that His Majesty was attacked tonight. Were any of the people accompanying him injured? Who knew what Yin Yang had brought up, but Yin Jiao's recently calmed expression became annoyed once more. No, His Majesty is fine. It's just that Marquis Gu's heir was injured. Princess Danyang was stunned. What injury did he suffer? Yin Yang reflexively looked at her, and Princess Danyang lowered her head and took a sip of tea, realizing that she had spoken out of turn. Yin Jiao said, "It was just his arm that was stabbed by a sword when he was protecting His Majesty. There isn't anything serious." When the eldest young sir and third young sir from Marquis Gu's manor were engaged in combat with the assassins, Yu Fu took His Majesty and leapt down from the side of the building and ran away. They then hid under a bridge. At that time, second young sir and I were admiring the lanterns on the main street. After hearing the news, the second young sir immediately gathered some patrolling soldiers and led them to the bridge to fight off the assassins. I didn't expect that His Majesty would actually be in the mood to have such perverse thoughts at a time like that, taking liberties with Yu Fu. Yu Fu could not bear the humiliation and gave His Majesty a beating. I fear that word of this has already spread to all of the city guards. Princess Danyang nearly lost her grip on her teacup. What did you say? Yu Fu. Yu Fu gave Imperial Brother a beating in front of everyone? That's right. How could His Majesty treat the person who had saved him like this? He truly is ungrateful. Jiao. Yin Yang urgently spoke up to quiet her down. Insulting His Majesty in front of Princess Danyang might be a little too outrageous. Since his return from the old home, he noticed that Yin Jiao's temperament seemed to have changed quite a bit from before. In the past, she was a gentle lady, but she was now becoming bolder, and she was becoming more and more lively. This, however, was good too. If she had the same temperament as before, she might spend her days washing her face with tears over the scar on her forehead. If she could live peacefully, that was what mattered most. Yin Jiao stopped herself, and Princess Danyang gave Yin Yang a reassuring smile. Former Prime Minister, there's no need to pay it any mind. Jiao is speaking the truth. Imperial Brother did indeed go too far by doing this. Yin Jiao suddenly said to her, Danyang, do you think His Majesty will punish Yu Fu? I heard that when His Majesty was being escorted back to the palace, his head and face were blue and purple with bruises. If he can't bear the pain tonight, do you think that he will decree for Yu Fu to be apprehended tomorrow? Princess Danyang thought for a bit but did not really know if Ning Chengji would have Yu Fu apprehended. Imperial Brother, as the only prince born of the late Empress, has always been pampered. Not to mention being beaten, but there was nobody who dared to lay a finger on him. Yu Fu is likely the only one who has hit him in his life, and she even beat him until he was covered in bruises. Yin Jiao was worried and turned to Yin Yang. Father, help Yu Fu. Don't let His Majesty apprehend her. Can you go into the palace to ask His Majesty to be lenient? Princess Danyang and Yin Yang fell silent at the same time, and Yin Jiao looked back and forth between the two, a feeling of horror welling up in her chest. One of them was an old official who had resigned from office, while the other was a princess that had lost favor. These seemed like lofty positions, but they were already in positions where they could no longer speak up in front of the emperor. Yin Jiao's eyes suddenly lit up. I will go and ask eldest brother. Eldest brother has liked Yu Fu for so long. He will surely help Yu Fu. Princess Danyang rapidly raised her head and looked at Yin Jiao, her eyes full of disbelief. Yin Shuo liked Yu Fu? When did this happen? Why did she never know about this? In her frantic rush to act, Yin Jiao did not notice Princess Danyang's expression, as she was entirely focused on running out. Yin Yang spoke up at this critical moment. Stop. Puzzled, she turned to look back at Yin Yang, and the latter quietly said, there's no need for anyone to plead for lenience for Princess Xinjiang. This is the true way to help her. Late into the night, the light in Jiyu Shubai's room remained illuminated. Yu Fu was applying medicine for him. His shirt had been partially removed, exposing a long wound that extended from his right shoulder down his arm. Yu Fu carefully applied medicine to the wound. It's fortunate that while the wound is long, it is not deep. Those people from Jianghu could be considered quite nice, as there wasn't any poison on their swords. Jiyu Shubai watched her apply the medicine and felt that she was being overly cautious. He could not help but faintly smile. Those people from Jianghu were not weak. At that time, third brother and I needed to protect you and His Majesty, and we needed to deal with them. It was really hard to manage. If not for this, they could not have hurt me. Yu Fu finished applying the medicine and then wrapped it with gauze. After this, she tied a knot that was neither too loose nor too tight. Jiyu Shubai put his clothes back on. As for you, you gave His Majesty a beating in front of everyone. I fear that word of this will have spread around the entire capital by tomorrow. Based on His Majesty's strong competitive side, he will definitely not give up. Yu Fu smiled and said, "You mean to say that he will decree for me to be apprehended? That could not possibly be better." With this, Jiyu Shubai knew what she was planning, and the two came to an unspoken understanding. You had so many chances to deal with him secretly, yet you insisted on beating him in front of the guards. It was for the sake of giving him no choice but to increase your guilt to save face, isn't that right? Yu Fu nodded. Surely, there will be a decree tomorrow morning. If there isn't, have the Manor's soldiers spread the word. The more people that know, the better. Jiyu Shubai's eyes lit up. The more people that know, the more His Majesty's image would be damaged. Even if he would be reluctant to blame you, he would have no choice. When that time comes, I want to see what sort of excuse he will use to elevate a girl guilty of committing a crime to the position of Empress. It's just, he hesitated for a moment, and Yu Fu thought that he was worried that she would suffer from being condemned, thus she reassured him, "Don't worry. My punches and kicks looked frightening, but they did not land heavily. Even if I am condemned, my life won't be at risk. At the very worst, I will lose my title and my fief, being demoted to a commoner. That is what I wish." Once she was demoted to a commoner, Ning Chengji would have even less of an excuse to name her as Empress. Jiyu Shubai, however, said, "That's not what I'm worried about. I am just worried that Ning Chengji might not punish you. If he really is annoyed with you, I fear that he would have ordered for you to be apprehended when second brother reached you, but he did not do that." Yu Fu furrowed her brow, remembering how he had tried to stand in front of her to protect her when the assassins showed up. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that Jiyu Shubai was correct. She was so angry that she could not speak properly. It would be bad if that's the case. He won't even run away when given a beating. Could it be that those siblings are gluttons for punishment? Princess Danyang was abused by Yin Shuo, and she clearly had a chance to leave the Prime Minister's manor. However, she refused to leave. Ning Chengji was scolded by Yu Fu first and then he was given a beating. If he still refused to give up on her, he truly would be a glutton for punishment. Jiyu Shubai patted her on the back of her head, his palms transmitting a calming warmth to her. "Don't be scared. I won't allow you to be taken by another man." Princess Danyang left the main hall's courtyard in a trance. The ground beneath her feet felt like cotton. She recalled the time when Yu Fu first arrived at Marquis Gu's manor. She had treated her like her future younger sister-in-law. Knowing that everyone in Marquis Gu's manor from Jiyu Huijiang down liked her, she did not dare to treat her with scorn. This was true even though Yu Fu was just an adopted daughter from the countryside, and the difference between their statuses was as great as the difference between heaven and earth. After realizing that Jiyu Shubai loved her as more than just a younger sister, even favoring her far more than the princess born of the empress, she started to see Yu Fu as her sworn enemy. After that, Jiyu Huijiang engaged the two, and Jiyu Shubai would rather reject her and marry Yu Fu. She was heartbroken that she was not chosen. Who knew that now, history would repeat itself? Once again, it was her and Yu Fu, and once again, it was the man whom she liked. It was just that Jiyu Shubai had become Yin Shuo. Yin Jiaro said that her eldest brother had liked Yu Fu for so long, but exactly how long was this? If it was from before they got married, why did Yin Shuo marry her? Why would he thank the late emperor during the wedding? Why would he pretend to accept marrying her? Yu Fu, Yu Fu. She did not even have the energy to hate Yu Fu. Her entire body just felt cold. Ning Chengji had said in front of family members and court officials that Yu Fu was the noblest girl in Eastern Ling, casting her, the daughter of the empress, behind her. Yu Fu was the noblest, and she was about to become of age. In court, she had prestige, and she was known by the commoners as Princess Zhenjiang, but who knew Princess Danyang? Spreading gossip. Spreading gossip, she was nothing more than an ordinary woman in the Prime Minister's manner, her beauty wilting like a flower. She was not loved by her husband, and she did not have a father or brother to care for her. She and Yu Fu were previously as different as heaven and earth, and they were still as different as heaven and earth. It was just that she was now the earth. She was just someone that nobody would remember. Princess, are you going to look for your husband? Diana quietly reminded her from behind, and Princess Danyang raised her head. She had ended up walking to Yin Shuo's outer study. She stared blankly at the lantern outside of the outer study, and she could imagine the sight of Yin Shuo sitting below a light and reading a report. From time to time, he would stand up and flip through the materials from the past and then pick up a brush to write some notes. It was probably like that, right? She did not know because Yin Shuo never allowed her to enter the outer study. Even if the outer study was available to the officials that frequently visited, she still did not have the right to enter. In Yin Shuo's eyes, it was possible that she was even lower than a common official. Would she be going to look for Yin Shuo? Her footsteps wavered, and for a while, she wanted to ask him to clarify the situation. This would also allow her to give up, but she also wanted to lie to herself. It was too late tonight. Would it not be better to go tomorrow? Diana saw that she was frozen in place and urged, if Princess wishes to see your husband, just go and look for him. If you don't wish to see him, let's quickly go back. What would we do if you caught a cold from standing in the wind? Oh, then, let's go back. We'll come back tomorrow. In the end, she could not summon enough courage, and she turned to return to the eastern courtyard. At the very moment that she left, she understood that the tomorrow that she spoke of would not come. After today passed, she would have even less courage to ask Yin Shuo. Diana followed behind her and suddenly saw her stop in her tracks. As if possessed, she quickly turned around and ran toward the outer study. Princess. In the outer study, Yin Shuo was waiting for more news to come from the palace. One aspect of it was Ning Chengji's injury, but the more important aspect was his attitude toward what happened that night and how he planned to deal with Yu Fu. Not long later, the news arrived, "Your sir, word has come from the Imperial Physicians Group. All of His Majesty's injuries are superficial. They just look a little frightening, but they aren't serious." This was roughly what Yin Shuo had expected. Yu Fu was not the type of person that would only speak without acting on it. If she really wanted to hurt Ning Chengji, she very likely could have secretly poisoned him and had him die without anyone knowing how. This sort of loud and showy act was just meant to be seen by others. He could not help but smile. Yu Fu is exceedingly smart to be able to think of this sort of plan to reject His Majesty's plan to appoint her empress, but it's hard to say if His Majesty will act as she hopes. The servant said, based on what one of the eunuchs said, after His Majesty returned to the palace, he did not mention Princess Xinjiang in the slightest. He did, however, have Imperial Consort Li summoned to be reprimanded. Right now, Imperial Consort Li is kneeling outside of His Majesty's palace to repent. Apparently, she had His Majesty eat something that she should not have, or His Majesty would not have done. Not have done what? The servant knew how he felt about Yu Fu and felt a little troubled, saying, would not have taken liberties with Princess Xinjiang. That is what provoked the princess's wrath. Yin Shuo initially thought that it had just been an excuse that Yu Fu had used and did not think that it had actually happened. In an instant, his expression became extremely ugly. The servant lowered his head and did not dare speak when he suddenly heard the sound of footsteps coming from the courtyard. He hastily exited to take a look and found Princess Danyang walking over with her maidservant behind her. Is husband inside? The servant glanced inside first, and Yin Shuo's expression was non-committal, thus he cupped his hands toward Princess Zhenjiang. Princess, may I ask the reason for coming to look for the eldest young sir so late at night? Based on her previous temperament, Princess Danyang would surely say, can I not come without a reason? But the current her was much less trenchant. She had lost her domineering attitude, and she just smiled and said, Jiaro just returned, and she told me a bit about what happened to His Majesty tonight. I was thinking that husband would be interested in hearing about it, thus I came here to tell him. The servant glanced inside, and Yin Shuo faintly nodded. Only then did the servant stand aside to allow her in. Princess, this way. Princess Danyang walked in on her own. Yin Shuo sat behind the desk and held a cup of tea. He did not even look at her. She looked around and then sat down on a chair to the side. Yin Shuo spoke without beating around the bush. Jiaro went to look at the lanterns with Jiu Juji and the others, right? What did she tell you when she got back? Princess Danyang paused for a moment. Did he not want to see her so badly that he was not willing to even say a few words of greeting? Did he need to get straight to the point? A feeling of sadness filled her heart. Are you also like this when you speak to Yu Fu? Yin Shuo's hands froze, and he slightly furrowed his brow. What do you mean by this? Princess Danyang forced a smile. It's nothing. I was just feeling a bit anxious after hearing that Yu Fu gave my imperial brother a beating. Jiaro was very worried. She wanted to come and ask you to plead for Yu Fu, and she said that you have liked Yu Fu for a long time. It turned out that Yin Jiaro had said it. Yin Shuo was unmoved. What else did Jiaro say, for example, what the people of Marquis Gu's manor thought about what happened tonight or what Yu Fu thought about what happened? Princess Danyang's face was pale. You still like Yu Fu, don't you? You are my husband, and I am asking you if you like another girl, yet you insist on asking me about other things. Only now did Yin Shuo look at her. Could it be that this was the first time that she was finding out that he did not like her? She had endured for such a long time, so why did she suddenly come and ask him this tonight? He impatiently said, whom I like is none of your business in the same way that whom you like is none of my business. If this is all that you had to say, you can leave now. Princess Danyang was stunned. You're still bothered that I once liked Jiu Shubai? Yin Shuo ruthlessly cut her off. I don't care. Whom you like is your business. How is it related to me? Are you still unable to understand the situation? I don't have any feelings for you. If you want to live your life peacefully in the Prime Minister's manner, you can continue to be my official wife. If you don't want that, I have some other plans in mind. It turned out that he did not care about the fact that she had previously liked Jiu Shubai. Rather, he had never felt anything for her. If there had never been any feelings, where would there be any concern? Danyang sneered, of all the people to like, you chose Yu Fu. She is just a girl raised in the wilderness with an unclear background, yet you all still like her. Jiu Shubai likes her, and even you like her. Father Emperor and Imperial Brother both like her. Why is it that all of the things that I like end up being taken away by her? Yin Shuo paused. Mixed in Princess Danyang's rant was the fact that she liked him in the same way that she had liked Jiu Shubai. He did not believe it. The things that truly belong to you won't be taken away by others. The things that have been taken away, he stood up and leaned close to Princess Danyang, cruelly whispering into her ear, those things never belong to you. Princess Danyang shuddered. It was as if she had been dunked in a tub of frigid water. It was as if every pore on her body had been closed off. Yin Shuo's gaze pierced her like a cold blade, reducing her heart to a bloody pulp. Her voice trembled. What's so great about Yu Fu? Why do you all like her? Her good points, you wouldn't understand even if you were told. Yin Shuo returned to his seat and sat back down. He no longer looked at her. Servants, come and see the guest out. The servant entered from outside the door. He bowed and then invited Princess Danyang to leave. With a stunned expression, tears welled up in her eyes. The servant stood to the side but did not dare touch her. Yin Shuo continued to avoid looking at her. After a brief pause, the servant awkwardly said, Princess, please don't make things difficult for this servant. Princess Danyang slowly turned around and walked out of the study. Yin Shuo slightly raised his head and saw her corpse-like figure leave the room. He faintly frowned. He then looked back down at his report, but it was hard to say what he was thinking. The next day, Yu Fu woke up first thing in the morning and went out to feed Pan Ju and Pang Wu herself. Pang Wu, you need to eat a little more and help Pang Ju lose some weight. Pang Ju, stop eating Pang Wu's food. Pang Ju snarled at her with dissatisfaction but reluctantly retreated a couple of steps. Pang Wu proudly stepped forward and happily ate the food that was in Pang Ju's bowl. With a look of satisfaction, the small, white fox revealed a smile. Yu quickly comforted Pang Ju, who had been instructed to lose weight. She patted their heads and suddenly remembered how Jiyu Shubai would often pat her head like this, and she could not help but laugh. Auntie Li entered the courtyard and saw Yu Fu in the backyard chatting and laughing with her animals. Surprised, she said, "Young miss, why did you get up so early today?" Yarolan walked out of the inner room with a bronze basin. Young miss said that she was worried that she might have to go out later, thus she already finished getting washed up. Auntie Li looked at the bronze basin. There was still some steam emanating from the surface of the warm water. It was clear that it had already been used. Auntie Li became even more confused. Why would young miss need to go out so early? The roosters haven't even started crying. Yu Fu finished feeding Pang Ju and Pang Wu and then walked over to Auntie Li and said, "I am worried that I won't be able to return for a long time, so I got up a little earlier." The words "won't be able to return" gave Auntie Li a fright. Could it be that His Majesty intends to punish you because of the beating that you gave him last night? Who can say? Yu Fu did not look worried in the slightest. On the contrary, she looked a little excited. "I just hope that His Majesty does punish me." "Oh right. How many people went out early to spread the rumors?" The latter half of the sentence was addressed to Yarolan, and Yarolan looked outside the courtyard. She happened to see Yang Zheng run in. Auntie Li saw him run in without any consideration for propriety and furrowed her brow. She thought to herself that he was not observing the rules at all. This was a young lady's courtyard. Was this a place that a man could casually stroll into? Yu Fu smiled and stepped forward to receive him. Yang Zheng panted and said, "Young miss, don't worry. Everything has been arranged. Our people went to the morning market, spread the word, and everyone in the streets is now discussing it." Yu Fu laughed. "The morning market? Only you guys could think of something like that." When it came to the best place to spread rumors, aside from tea houses and restaurants, would the best place not be the morning market? The housewives that loved gossiping the most would go and buy vegetables at the morning market. This gossip would spread rapidly until everyone in the capital knew. Auntie Li was confused. "Young miss, what are you talking about?" Yang Zheng was quick to speak, opening his mouth and saying, "It's the matter of the young miss giving His Majesty a beating. Young General said that the head of the city guard, Mo Huangshaw, has benefited from the young miss' kindness and would not allow his subordinates to speak poorly of young miss. As a result, we had some people dress up as city guards to spread the word. Very soon, everyone in the capital will know that young miss hit His Majesty." Auntie Li's eyes rolled back, and she nearly passed out on the spot. Fortunately, Yarolan was quick to act and supported her. She pointed at Yang Zheng and sputtered for a while. You guys, isn't this just making young miss guilt seem worse? This is bad, this is bad. What should our young miss do?" Yu Fu left Yarolan in the western wing and carefully explained the situation to Auntie Li. She then headed toward the main hall. Arriving at the main hall, she was shocked to find that aside from Jiyu Huijiang, the other generals from the Jiyu family's army were also present. Yang Huisha and Laro Jin were all frowning. Seeing Yu Fu, they hesitated. Yu Fu greeted Jiyu Huijiang first, then smiled and said to the others, "What have you all come here for?" The group remained silent, and the atmosphere was very odd. Yu Fu tentatively said, "Could it be related to me?" With her saying this, Laro Jin was the first to run out of patience. The matter of young miss giving His Majesty a beating has already started spreading around the capital. What would we do if a decree comes from the imperial palace proclaiming your guilt? Everyone's expressions were rather ugly. Even Jiyu Huijiang's expression was solemn. Yu Fu, however, burst out laughing. This laughter left everyone confused. Yu Fu said, "General Jin, if an imperial decree comes and detains me in the imperial family's prison, what do you plan on doing?" Laro Jin opened his mouth but was stunned. After a long pause, he finally said, "I came with my soldiers. If anyone dares to take young miss, we will definitely be able to stop them." "What happens after you stop them?" "After stopping them, Laro Jin looked at Jiyu Huijiang and then at Yang Huisha. After stammering for a while, he did not come up with anything. Yu Fu let out a sigh. I appreciate your concerns, but there's no need for this. So what if I hit His Majesty? It would be best if he did arrest me. Regardless of whether it's stripping me of my title or imprisoning me, at the very least, he can no longer appoint me empress. Isn't that right? The group finally understood after hearing this. It turned out that Yu Fu was thinking of doing this. Yang Huisha suddenly understood. It's no wonder young general had Yang Zheng take those people to the morning market. He said that they would spread rumors about what happened last night, so it turned out that this was the plan. Thinking about it like this, even if Ning Chengji did not want to punish Yu Fu, he would have no choice but to punish her to save face. This was a good plan. It just seemed a little risky. Laro Jin anxiously said, "What do we do if, in a fit of rage, His Majesty decides that he wants young Miss Life? Wouldn't that make it not worth it?" This was what everyone was most worried about. Yu Fu looked up toward the top and winked at Jiyu Huijiang. The latter finally spoke up, "It won't reach that point. Yu Fu is a princess who was conferred her title by the late emperor. More importantly, she has the deity of medicine as a pillar of support. Even if His Majesty won't give face to my Marquis Gu's manner, he will show consideration to the deity of medicine. It's just that we don't know what sort of punishment it will be." Yu Fu quickly approached him and comforted him as if comforting a child. "There won't be any real punishment. Not to mention my status, but even if I did give him a beating, I participated in protecting him. If he severely punished someone who was instrumental in protecting him, won't it chill the hearts of the people?" What she said was reasonable. Though Jiyu Huijiang was worried, the situation had already progressed past the point of no return. "You've matured and have your own ideas. I should not hold you back, but you must remember that no matter what happens, your life is most important. Everything else is secondary. Do you understand?" Yu Fu quickly said, "What sort of thing is head general saying? A father should teach his daughter. It shouldn't be called restraint." Jiyu Huijiang was stunned. He had always claimed to the outside world that Yu Fu was his adopted daughter, but the truth was that Yu Fu had never called him father. He had always thought that Yu Fu had some reservations and did not want to call him father. Hearing this today was particularly heartwarming. "You have never called me father." I thought. Yu Fu did not know whether to laugh or cry. How should she explain this problem? When she first arrived at Marquis Gu's manor, she had been forced to leave Immortals Valley, and she did not want to implicate Marquis Gu's manor in matters that she had not taken care of. After the troubles were resolved, because she liked Jiyu Shubai, she could not call him father. She was hoping to address him in this way after the marriage, but, for now, she did not think that Jiyu Huijiang would misunderstand and think that she had some reservations. In front of so many people, it was hard for her to say it, thus she said, "In my heart, you have always been my father. This was true in the past, it is true now, and it will continue to be true. It's just that eldest brother and I are engaged, so how can I call you this now?" Jiyu Huijiang was stunned but quickly came to an understanding. A suspicious blush appeared on his face. Right, a daughter must be reserved. It can't be done. He was Jiyu Shubai's father and Yu Fu's future father-in-law. She could only call him father after the marriage happened. Yu Fu saw that he understood and quickly said, "Head General, please restrain the generals. When His Majesty sends people to deliver the decree, you must not stop them. Once you do stop them, you would be guilty of the crime of opposing an imperial decree." She was not afraid of a decree coming. She was afraid that one would not come. Jiyu Huijiang was consoled to the point of being in a daze and immediately nodded, "Don't worry." He then looked at the others. Opposing imperial decrees is not the way of the Jiyu family's army. Regardless of what decree comes later, you must not stop them. Everyone, when they had been talking about opposing the decree earlier, Jiyu Huijiang had not said a word. Why was it that he immediately changed his mind after being coaxed by Yu Fu? Husband is truly proud. Husband is truly proud. The decree did not arrive until the sun was high in the sky. Everyone knew that Yu Fu intended to go against this overwhelming enemy, but they watched Yunuchi Kai enter with the imperial decree. Eunuch Kai was the highest-ranked aide to the throne, and he usually only went out to deliver rewarding imperial decrees. As for handing out punishments, Eunuch Kai would never go and would leave those to the lower-ranked palace servants. Could it be that he did not come to deliver a punishment? Princess Zhenjiang to receive the decree. Everyone stepped forward to receive the decree and heard Eunuch Kai say, "In accordance with His Majesty's decree, when attacked by assassins from Jianghu during our excursion out of the palace last night, Princess Zhenjiang acted quickly and put herself in danger to protect us, and we are grateful. As a result, the reward shall be a basket of brilliant pearls, 10 precious ornaments, and 20 pieces of jade. This is His Majesty's way of showing his gratitude toward his loyal subjects." Everyone felt extremely conflicted. They did not know if they should be happy or disappointed. They both hoped that Yu Fu would be able to avoid being appointed empress and were worried that Yu Fu would be punished. It was hard to say if this was a good outcome or a bad one. Yu Fu looked disappointed. Without accepting the decree, she stood up and said, "The ones who put themselves in danger to protect His Majesty were eldest brother and third brother, not me. Why did His Majesty's decree not mention them?" Eunuch Kai frowned and thought to himself that His Majesty not handing down a punishment was already good enough. He did not think that the princess would try to ask for more. He thought for a moment and then said with a smile, "Princess, how can a servant guess at what the meaning behind His Majesty's imperial decree? The ones who fought against the assassins last night were the eldest young sir and third young sir, but the one who remained by His Majesty's side was Princess. Eunuch means to say that our contributions are shared by everyone. Our contributions are Yu Fu's contributions, so there's no need to differentiate." Jiyu Shubai's voice came from the gate, and everyone turned to look. The young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor had come. Eunuch Kai's smile turned ugly. He could agree with what Jiyu Shubai had said, but he could not refute it in front of everyone. Yu Fu sneered, "His Majesty acted frivolously with this younger sister, and I gave him a beating. How would that matter be handled?" Eunuch Kai wore an awkward expression, thinking back to Ning Chengji's bruised face and how he lay in bed and gave these orders. Though we were given a beating by Yu Fu, we were the one in the wrong. No, it's all that damn Imperial Consort Li's fault, actually daring to deceive us. Go and forbid Imperial Consort Li from coming for 3 months. No, half a year. Eunuch Kai could not bear to see him in pain. While ordering the imperial physicians to give him medicine, he said, "Then how should Princess Zhenjiang's side be dealt with?" Ning Chengji gritted his teeth and allowed the imperial physicians to apply the medicine. After a moment of silence, he said, "No punishment, she should be given a grand reward. Reward her for saving our life. As for hitting us, don't bring it back up. If anyone dares to bring it up in court, they shall lose our favor." He gritted his teeth, grimaced, and screamed, while the imperial physicians were too afraid to apply the medicine. Eunuch Kai had no choice but to accept and hand down the decree as instructed. He pulled himself out of his thoughts and cupped his hands toward Yu Fu, saying, "Princess, His Majesty will not worry about this matter. Will you continue to worry about it? You must know that giving His Majesty a beating is a severe crime." He looked toward the room. The people from Marquis Gu's manor and the generals from the Jiyu family's army were all present. There were some things that should not be said in front of so many people, but he did not have time to worry about that right now. "Princess, just remember how His Majesty feels about you. Since ancient times, how many people have struck a ruler and been rewarded rather than punished? His Majesty has treated Princess so earnestly, yet Princess isn't the slightest bit moved." Yu Fu looked at him with a frown. She had always thought that he was someone who fawned over people and was worse than the late emperor's eunuch Gao. Today, she saw him speak earnestly. He said that Ning Chengji was treating her with sincerity. Yu Fu stood there and was neither aggressive nor meek. Eunuch Kai calmed down a little. He figured that in the end, Yu Fu was still a girl. How could she be so cruel as to completely ignore Ning Chengji's sincerity? People were not plants. No matter what, there would be at least some emotions. Everyone's gaze landed on Yu Fu. Laro Jin quietly prodded Yang Huasha, "In truth, His Majesty really treats our young miss well. Don't you think?" He thought that he had kept his voice down, but everyone in the hall could hear him. Yang Huisha shot a desperate glare at him and desperately wanted to toss him out. Nobody would think you're a mute if you didn't talk. Old Yang. Laro Jin initially wanted to discuss this matter with him but suddenly saw Jiyu Shubai stand there with his lips slightly pursed. His expression looked a little ugly. He felt nothing but regret and immediately shut his mouth. Yu Fu looked behind Eunuch Kai. Are those the rewards that His Majesty gave me? Eunuch Kai thought that she was moved and quickly had the palace servant bring the treasures forward for Yu Fu to look at. That's right, Princess. These are all gifts that His Majesty is rewarding you with. Does Princess like them? Yu Fu's eyes shone from the glow of the brilliant pearls and the gems of various colors. They were colorful and exquisite. She faintly smiled and stepped toward a yellow chessboard with jade pieces. She could not help but reach out and feel it. These are all treasures, but I don't like any of them. She waved her hand decisively, dropping the chessboard to the ground and shattering the jade into small pieces. The palace servants retreated in shock, while Eunuch Kai stared at Yu Fu wide-eyed. He never thought that Yu Fu would be so resolute. Yu Fu jutted out her chin. I don't like any of these things. If Eunuch Kai insists on sending them, I will smash them all. Based on Eastern Ling's laws, what is the punishment for breaking something given by the imperial family? Everyone in Marquis Gu's manor knew the answer to this question. When the late emperor was still alive, he would send the most gifts to Marquis Gu's manor. Yu Fu looked at Qian, who was standing next to the gate, and the latter stepped forward, bowed, and then said, a commoner would be sentenced to death, and though princess's status is noble, you would need to be imprisoned as punishment. Qi Ju worriedly glanced at his father and quietly sighed. Yu Fu randomly picked up another jade trinket and smashed it on the ground and then provocatively looked at Eunuch Kai. Eunuch Kai, as an aide to the throne, will you just watch me destroy the rewards that His Majesty has granted me? Eunuch Kai's hands trembled. As someone who served the throne, he had seen many things, but this was the first time that he had seen something like this. He remembered how Ning Chengji lay in bed and cried out in pain, but he also remembered the way that he had looked when ordering him to reward Yu Fu. He had found a foundation to work from and gave Yu Fu a smile that was uglier than a crying face. Princess, please smash them as you see fit. His Majesty gave those rewards to Princess. Princess can do with them as Princess sees fit. This was originally given as a present because it looked nice, but if Princess likes hearing the sound of them being smashed, please feel free to smash them. As long as Princess is happy, that shall be the item's purpose. Laro Jin looked at Eunuch Kai with a grimace. This was the first time that he had seen someone so shameless. This manner of currying favor was truly unique. If the aides to the throne were like this, it was clear just how tolerant Ning Chengji was of Yu Fu. Yu Fu had infuriated Eunuch Kai and decided to take decisive action. Servants, come and smash all of these items and then scatter them outside. Let the people of Eastern Ling see how benevolent His Majesty is. Eunuch Kai's heart nearly stopped when seeing her smash just 2 items. If he continued to watch, he might just pass out on the spot. As long as Princess is happy, that's all that matters. This servant will be going. Eunuch Kai quickly saluted and left without looking back. Before leaving, he covered his ears. He was afraid to hear the sound of Yu Fu smashing those treasures. Each and every one of those treasures was worth a fortune. Just smashing them like that was criminal, absolutely criminal. Once Eunuch Kai left, everyone fell silent. Qian gritted his teeth and stepped forward to ask for instructions. Master, young miss, should we really smash these items? Jiyu Huijiang looked at Yu Fu, and Yu Fu was clearly at a loss over what to do. That was why she had resorted to such drastic measures to reject Ning Chengji, but Ning Chengji was far more determined than any of them had expected. She had wanted to smash these items and place them outside the manor. It was not to show the people how benevolent His Majesty was but to show everyone her resolution. She said that she would not marry him and would continue to say that. There was no room for negotiation. Head General, young miss, how about we forget about it? If this annoys His Majesty, what if he really? Laro Jin was the first to speak up to try and dissuade them, while Yang Huisha and the others remained silent. They were thinking the same thing. However, Jiu Yi said, smash them. Why not smash them? Little Yu Fu has already done it, yet His Majesty continues to shamelessly want to marry her. If these things aren't smashed, everything that she has done will have been for nothing. Jiu Xiong also agreed with him, they should be smashed. If they aren't smashed, could it be that she needs to kill the ruler to avoid becoming the empress? The idea of killing the ruler was far too serious. Like a sharp needle, it pierced through everyone's minds. Qian was troubled one way or the other, as he looked between Jiu Huijiang and Yu Fu. Jiu Huijiang finally spoke after a long pause, do as the young miss said. There's no need to worry. This sort of decision was incisive and resolute. It was hard to say what sort of discussion it would stir up in court and among the people, thus the end result would be hard to foresee. Marquis Gu's manner had never done something this publicly before, as Jiu Huijiang always kept a low profile. This time, for the sake of Yu Fu, he was willing to change his way of doing things. Yu Fu was very moved. Laro Jin and the others left without seeing a decree of Yu Fu's punishment. After they left, Yu Fu suddenly dropped to her knees in front of Jiu Huijiang. Everyone was given a shock, and Jiu Shubai immediately stepped forward to support her, but Yu Fu politely refused. Head General, I have some things to say. Jiu Huijiang said, if you have something to say, stand up to say it. Our family doesn't have any rules about speaking while kneeling. Yu Fu thought for a bit, then slowly stood up with Jiu Shubai's help. Head General, I want to move out of Marquis Gu's manor. When I was little, didn't you give me a residence? It's the one next to West Lake. I want to move there. How can that be allowed? Jiu Xiong and Jiu Yi were the first to cry out. Jiu Huijiang had been expecting that she would say this and was not shocked. That's impossible. A day as a daughter of Marquis Gu's manor means that you will always be a daughter of Marquis Gu's manor. How could we allow you to move out? More importantly, did you think that doing this would mean that Marquis Gu's manor would avoid being implicated? Yu Fu had indeed wanted to avoid implicating everyone else, especially after she had given Ning Chengji a beating last night. She had also smashed the treasures gifted to her by the throne. The conflict was escalating, and it could no longer be controlled. There could only be one outcome to this situation. She would rather die than obey, as she continued to anger Ning Chengji until he finally decided that he wanted to kill her. Following this route, Marquis Gu's manor would inevitably be placed in danger, and this was a situation that Yu Fu wanted to avoid. Jiu Shubai said, Yu Fu, you have been a part of Marquis Gu's manor since long ago. How can family talk about being implicated or not being implicated? Could it be that you have never thought of us as family? That's right. Yu Fu, no matter what, we won't let you move out on your own. You need to have faith in father and eldest brother. They will definitely be able to think of something to dissuade His Majesty. Everyone did their best to try and persuade Yu Fu when they suddenly heard a ruckus outside of Marquis Gu's manor. Jiu Yi strode toward the gate. What's going on? Why is there such a commotion outside? The servant entered and reported, replying to Sixth Young Sir, Steward Qi took those treasures outside and smashed them. The citizens are currently gathered around to discuss it. This quickly? Yu Fu and Jiu Shubai exchanged a look. I'll go out to take a look. Jiu Shubai followed close behind her, and everyone followed them out. Before they could step out of the gate, they heard the citizens' discussions. How criminal, how absolutely criminal. Truly, truly such a pity. Yu Fu felt a little lonely, raising her head to look at Jiu Shubai. It is a bit of a pity. Those treasures were innocent. How great would it have been if they had been given as alms to the poor, but Jiu Shubai hugged her. His hug was filled with a comforting feeling. He consoled her, saying, I know that you did not want to smash those things. You just wanted to make your stance clear. His Majesty is relentlessly pursuing you, so you had no choice but to make this decision. This can't be blamed on you. You can't blame yourself. Do you understand? Yu Fu nodded. I want to go and hand out porridge to the poor tomorrow. For destroying those treasures, I should do something to make up for it. Jiu Shubai patted her head with a smile. Then when you usually do something wrong, do you always go and give alms to the old people selling food or the aunties with weak legs selling flowers? Yu Fu knew that he was comforting her and awkwardly smiled. Ji Yi ran out of the manor and then returned. Little Yu Fu, don't feel bad. Go outside and listen to what everyone is saying. Yu Fu had already heard it. Everyone was talking about the shattered treasures, and they felt that Yu Fu smashing them was very criminal. Ji Yi pulled her outside. Listen carefully. Listen. People gathered around Marquis Gu's manor to look at the shattered treasure pieces outside. There were small vendors that had stalls nearby, there were citizens that lived nearby, and there were people that happened to be passing by. How criminal! Our princess is such a good girl that anyone would want to marry her, but it has to be said that first come first serve. That's right. It's a pity that everyone in Marquis Gu's manor is so loyal, yet His Majesty still wants to steal their fiancée. It's truly absurd. Isn't that criminal? I heard that His Majesty doesn't just disrespect the late emperor, but he even favors villains while casting someone as loyal as Lord Marquis Jiyu to the side. The citizens whispered and discussed various matters. After Qian finished smashing the items, he ordered everyone to return to the manor. One young man dressed in plain clothes shouted at him, "Princess is great. This is the Princess Zhenjiang of Eastern Ling whom we respect." That's right. Princess has made great contributions to Eastern Ling. During the battle with Western Kuan last year, without Princess traveling a great distance to the border, it's hard to say if we would have won or lost. Qian was stunned, turning around and cupping his hands toward the person who had just spoken. This was a sign of accepting their kind intentions. Yu Fu stood inside the gate and blankly listened to the citizens' discussions. She could not help but dive into Jiyu Shubai's arms and tightly hug him. "Eldest brother, did you hear what they're saying?" "I did." Jiyu Shubai faintly smiled. "Our Yu Fu is so beloved by the people. Husband is truly proud." Investigate the Espionage, Part 2. Investigate the Espionage, Part 2. Your Majesty, this consort was wrong. This consort doesn't dare do it again. A woman in a plain palace dress staggered along the palace path, as ornaments fell from her body. There was a certain desolate feeling to this scene. She ran at the front, while a large group of palace servants chased after her. "Your Highness Imperial Consort Li, stop running. His Majesty doesn't want to see you. Your Highness, His Majesty has decreed that you are not allowed out for half a year. You are opposing his decree." Imperial Consort Li insisted on continuing to run forward. After passing through this long corridor, she would arrive at his palace. No matter what, she had to plead for lenience. Because of a bowl of chicken and velvet antler soup, Ning Chengji wanted to have her stay shut inside for half a year. With her beauty, how could she give up on this opportunity so easily? Hearing the commotion, some palace servants up ahead stopped Imperial Consort Li from advancing. "Your Highness Imperial Consort Li, you absolutely cannot continue forward and disturb His Majesty." Imperial Consort Li stopped in her tracks and fiercely glared. "Move aside. You lowly servants dare to stop this one? This one is the inner palace's noblest consort. Do you know that?" The palace servants looked at each other. With Imperial Consort Li's status, it was indeed difficult to offend her, but His Majesty's decree could not be unenforced. Seeing their expressions slightly change, Imperial Consort Li took advantage of the situation and said, "His Majesty only sentenced this one to remain inside to reflect. This one has come to ask for lenience. Everything will be fine. If you don't allow this one to go, when this one regains imperial favor, this one will come for your skins." The palace servants that were easier to scare hastily moved to the side and then tugged on the hems of the palace servants that were still blocking the path. "Let's just let her through." Her Highness Imperial Consort Li came from the second prince's manor. A day as a wife leads to 100 days of love, much less how many years they've been together. The remaining palace servants had no choice but to step aside. Imperial Consort Li lifted the hem of her dress and rushed toward the palace. "Your Majesty, this consort was wrong and begs your Majesty to forgive this consort." Ning Chengji was rudely awoken from his dream and shuddered, suddenly hearing the shrill cry of a woman's voice come from outside of the palace. He moved, and the wounds that Yu Fu's attack had left started to hurt. They hurt so much that he opened his mouth but could not speak. Eunuch Kai quickly entered the hall and saw that he was already awake. He quickly reported, "Your Majesty, Her Highness Imperial Consort Li is removing her jewelry to apologize for her wrongdoings. Removing her jewelry to repent again. Does she know when to stop?" He adjusted his position on the bed and suddenly remembered that he had sent Eunuch Kai out in the morning to deliver gifts to Marquis Gu's manor. He hastily said, "Have all of the gifts been given to Yu Fu?" Eunuch Kai's hair immediately stood on end, fearing that something was about to happen. Ning Chengji would always ask this question. He could not escape, thus he decided to just report the truth. He bowed and said, "Replying to your Majesty, they have all been delivered, but what? But Princess said that she did not like them, and she smashed 2 of them in front of this servant." Ning Chengji was stunned. He had given so many gifts to Yu Fu in the past, yet he had never heard of her not liking them. Could it be that even though she was rewarded rather than punished, she was still unhappy? Eunuch Kai closed his eyes and resignedly said, "Also after this servant left, she ordered for all of the gifts that your Majesty gave her to be smashed and then tossed out of Marquis Gu's manor for the citizens to discuss." What? Ning Chengji became furious. Eunuch Kai had already prepared himself for this, dropping to his knees. "Your Majesty, please calm down. Your Majesty, please calm down." Ning Chengji covered the injuries on his face. Why would she do this? Did she say anything else? Eunuch Kai listed out the reasons. Princess said that the ones who protected your Majesty were the eldest young sir and the 3rd young sir, thus she should not be the one to receive your Majesty's reward. She also said that she should be punished for having hit your Majesty. For the sake of being punished, she smashed those treasures in front of this servant. This servant knows that your Majesty loves Princess, so how could this servant dare to do anything to Princess? This servant was thinking of reporting this upon returning, but your Majesty was sleeping. Enough. Ning Chengji's roars were as loud as thunder. It's Jiyu Shubai again. She only has room for Jiyu Shubai in her heart. She must be annoyed that we did not reward Jiyu Shubai. No, even if that was the case, there would be no need for her to smash those things. He suddenly realized something, and his expression became desolate. We understand. She does not want to accept our kind intentions and does not want to be appointed empress by us. She smashed those treasures and threw them out in front of Marquis Gu's manor to infuriate us and make us give up on her. Your Majesty, this consort doesn't dare do it again. Your Majesty, please forgive this consort. Imperial Consort Li's annoying voice could be heard once more. Ning Chengji's heart was already filled with anger. Hearing Imperial Consort Li's voice just made him angrier. Without any concern for the pain coming from his facial injuries, he shouted, "Who allowed this woman to come to our bedchamber? Didn't we tell her to remain inside to reflect? Who allowed you to let her in?" Eunuch Kai quickly stood up from the floor. "Yes, this servant will go and chase her out immediately." Ning Chengji lay back down in bed and closed his eyes. Thinking of how rude he had been toward Yu Fu last night, it was all a result of Imperial Consort Li's petty plans. He hated her so much that his teeth itched. It would be one thing if she was like this on an average day, yet it just had to happen when he was with Yu Fu. The end result was that he received a beating. He could not vent his anger on Yu Fu. He could vent it on Imperial Consort Li. Shortly after this, he heard Eunuch Kai's voice. "What are you all standing around stupidly for? Quickly take Imperial Consort Li back. His Majesty still hasn't recovered from his injuries. If you disrupt His Majesty's recovery, I'll see which one of you can bear the burden of that crime." Imperial Consort Li remained on her knees and cried. Seeing Eunuch Kai stand in front of her with his arrogant bearing, she instantly lost her composure. "Stand aside for this one. Even if this one must be chased away, it must be His Majesty who chases this one away. What can you be considered?" Eunuch Kai was stunned, and his expression immediately became twisted. He had already been made to suffer at Yu Fu's hands at Marquis Gu's manor. Yu Fu was a princess, and she was viewed as a treasure by all. It was one thing if he suffered from that, but he did not think that he would also need to suffer from dealing with Imperial Consort Li after returning to the palace. What could he be considered, and what could Imperial Consort Li be considered? Eunuch Kai sneered, Your Highness Imperial Consort Li, this servant advises you to go back. You did something inappropriate and caused His Majesty to lose face. His Majesty currently does not want to see you, so why must you make a mockery of yourself? Imperial Consort Li was unable to see the situation clearly. She thought that she was the noblest lady in the inner palace and shouted at Eunuch Kai, "As long as this one sees His Majesty will surely change his mind. There's no need for a servant like you to speak. Do not speak of height in front of dwarfs." With Imperial Consort Li repeatedly speaking of servant this and servant that, everyone below Eunuch Kai felt uncomfortable. Eunuch Kai thought quickly and suddenly started smiling. That's right. His Majesty does not have an empress, thus Your Highness Imperial Consort Li is the noblest lady in the inner palace. Thinking back to the late emperor's inner palace, wasn't it Imperial Consort Xian who managed it for many years? Imperial Consort Li smiled with delight. It's fine as long as you know. Back then, Imperial Consort Li was not even afraid of His Majesty and Princess Danyang. The position that she occupied back then is the same as the one that this one currently occupies. Do you still dare to stop me? The corners of Eunuch Kai's mouth twitched into a smile, waving for the palace servants to stop Imperial Consort Li. He then entered the hall to report to Ning Chengji, "Your Majesty, Her Highness Imperial Consort Li said that she occupies the same position as Imperial Consort Xian did back then and that this servant does not have the right to stop her. She wants Your Majesty to personally stop her." Impudence. Ning Chengji suddenly opened his eyes. Imperial Consort Li was so stupid that she would take the pot that did not have boiling water. Despite clearly knowing that when he was still just a prince, he hated that the eldest prince had Imperial Consort Xian helping him, she still compared herself to Imperial Consort Xian. Back when Imperial Consort Xian had control over the inner palace, it was because Ning Chengji's birth mother, the Empress, passed away early. Was she trying to curse Yu Fu? He had run out of patience. Picking up the incense burner next to his bed, he walked out, "Hand down our decree. Imperial Consort Li is to be demoted to Concubine Li, and she is to remain under house arrest to reflect on her actions for half a year. If we see her again, she will be demoted to the rank of talented lady." He said this while enduring the pain from his injuries. Even those outside of the hall could hear his voice. Being too far away, Imperial Consort Li could not clearly hear what he had said, but she felt that the situation did not seem too good. It seemed to be going against her. Not long later, Eunuch Kai strutted out from inside the hall. In accordance with His Majesty's decree, Concubine Li is to return to her palace. If she dares to come out on her own to see His Majesty again, she is to be demoted to the rank of talented lady. Concubine Li. Imperial Consort Li's eyes rolled back. Unable to bear the weight of the situation, she passed out. The servants quickly rushed forward to support her. Eunuch Kai sneered and regretted that he could not kick her a few times. He then turned around and returned inside the hall, quietly muttering, "Shit." With the conclusion of the Lantern Festival, the seal on the court was lifted. Ning Chengji's appearance was still pretty bad, thus he left the court to be handled by the cabinet. As everyone expected, there was a decree making Yin Shuo the leader of the cabinet. Occupying the position above the other officials, he led the officials in court. After taking the medicine that Yu Fu had given him, Chen Jilao had already recovered, and he returned to court as everyone had expected. Ji Daogong continued to claim to be ill and could not get out of bed, thus his court affairs were temporarily handed to his eldest son, Ji Shenxian. After the seal was lifted, the first topic worthy of discussion was the shattered remains of the imperial gifts in front of Marquis Gu's manor. It was said that not even the yellow labels had been removed, thus anyone who saw them could tell that they were imperial gifts. Ning Chengji's desire for Yu Fu and Yu Fu's rejection of him were both abundantly clear. In addition to this, the rumors circulating around the capital about her beating a foolish ruler created a terrible influence. As an organization meant to govern the imperial family's manor had no choice but to make a statement. Though Princess Xinjiang's status is noble and has made many great contributions, she has violated our Eastern Ling's laws. First, she hit His Majesty. Second, she destroyed imperial gifts. Though this lowly official knows, This lowly official does not dare detain the princess without authorization. Would the cabinet please provide some instructions? Naturally, she should be detained. There's no need to detain her. Yin Shuo and Chen Jilaro spoke at the same time, but what caused everyone to be shocked was that Chen Jilaro was the one to say that she should be detained, while Yin Shuo had said that there was no need. The two were on the wrong sides, right? Was it not Yin Shuo who usually liked to oppose Marquis Gu's manner? Why would Chen Jilaro agree to detain Princess Jinjiang? Did he not get along very well with Lord Marquis Jiyu? After speaking, they exchanged a glance. As the leader of the cabinet, Yin Shuo had more right to speak than Chen Jilaro, but the other cabinet ministers followed Chen Jilaro's lead, thus the two were almost neck and neck. Yin Shuo smiled. Senior Minister Chen has seniority. Let's have Senior Minister Chen explain the reasoning for detaining the princess first. Chen Jilaro had been able to guess Yu Fu's intention. He had been on the receiving end of Yu Fu's benevolence, thus it was natural for him to accommodate Yu Fu's wishes. He said, though Princess Jinjiang has made many contributions, wise rulers make clear distinctions between rewards and punishments, and neither must be ignored. Contributions should be rewarded, and bad actions should be punished. If giving His Majesty a beating does not merit punishment, then what dignity does the ruler have? I think that even Lord Marquis Jiyu would agree with this lowly official's opinion, right? Naturally, Jiyu Huijiang could not tear him down. As the princess's adoptive father, it was a result of this marquis not teaching her well enough. Senior Minister Chen is right. When you do something wrong, you should be punished. Would the imperial family's manner please detain the princess? This marquis will not oppose that idea. The two worked in perfect harmony, and quite a few of the officials that did not understand the truth of the situation were very moved. They praised Jiyu Huijiang for his selflessness. Yin Shuo took a step forward. This official admires Marquis Gu's willingness to sacrifice your kin, but this official still believes that what princess did does not merit being detained. Why is that? Yin Shuo detailed the events. First, princess made a contribution by protecting His Majesty. The life that she protected was His Majesty's. If princess is punished, I fear that it could chill the hearts of the loyal soldiers, and they will no longer dare to protect His Majesty to the fullest extent of their abilities. Second, why was His Majesty given a beating by the princess? Why did Senior Minister Chen not mention it earlier? He had a faint smile on his face, but his tone was quite aggressive. Does Senior Minister Chen not know the reason, or did you deliberately not say the reason? Chen Jilaro frowned, while Senior Minister Wang quickly said from behind him, this sort of reason is difficult to bring up in court, so it's fine to not bring it up. Yin Shuo said, right, it is indeed difficult to bring up in court. His Majesty did something that could not be mentioned in court, thus he was beaten by the princess. My fellow ministers would previously send in countless letters saying His Majesty is being frivolous in one way or another, so why is it my fellow ministers are not happy now that he has been taught a lesson by the princess? Yes, the way in which princess taught this lesson is a bit extreme. They are still siblings. If the late emperor or late empress gave His Majesty a beating to teach him a lesson, would my fellow ministers believe that they should be punished? Senior Minister Wang said, why you relying on sophistry? No matter how noble princess's status is, she cannot be compared with the late emperor or late empress. Yin Shuo took his time and said, indeed, they cannot be compared, however, as long as it can help keep our ruler on the righteous path, everything else is secondary. Furthermore, His Majesty does not even feel that princess did anything wrong. On the contrary, he rewarded princess. Do my fellow ministers have anything else to add? Jiyu Huijiang heard his tone and knew that he understood what Yu Fu intended. That was why he would do everything that he could to stop Yu Fu from being punished. This person's mind was too profound to fathom. It was as if nothing could escape his eyes. It was quite something for a young man in his early 20s to be able to do something like this. It was just a pity that this person was set on doing bad things. Yin Shuo saw that nobody had anything else to say. He stepped to the side and picked up another scroll. Right now, the most pressing matter is not something internal. Instead, it's external. Would everyone please take a look at the secret report from Western Kuan? When Western Kuan was brought up, Everyone immediately became alert. It was as if they could smell the flames of war. The report was first handed down from the cabinet ministers to Jiyu Huaijiang without any reservations. Jiyu Huaijiang opened it up and took a look. It was a secret report from a spy in Western Kuan's capital, and it said that Western Kuan was preparing to attack Eastern Ling once more. It had been less than a year since Western Kuan's Grand Army had left. Why had they come again? All of the officials were stunned, and one expressed their disbelief. Where did this report come from? It must be fake, right? When Lord Marquis Jiyu set out for battle the previous time, he eliminated over 200,000 of Western Kuan's troops. Where would Western Kuan get the manpower to assault our Eastern Ling's borders? At the very least, it would take them 10 years to recover. Jiyu Huaijiang was also in disbelief. During the last battle between the two countries, for the sake of obtaining a longer-term peace, Jiyu Huaijiang had crossed the border to eliminate Western Kuan's main force, and he was nearly reprimanded in court because of this. Based on his experience from fighting against Western Kuan's army over many years, Western Kuan definitely did not have the military power to attack Eastern Ling once more. Yin Shuo could not help but say, "This spy is the most reliable spy that we have in Western Kuan. It won't be wrong. Western Kuan is indeed afraid of Marquis Gu's might, but our Eastern Ling has recently enthroned a new ruler, and the situation in court has not yet stabilized. For them, this is the best opportunity to strike." Jiyu Huaijiang said, after last year's battle, Western Kuan left with just over 100,000 troops. Where would they get the manpower? Could it be that Emperor Kuan intends to transfer all of the defenders on his borders and capital to attack us? Yin Shuo looked at him profoundly and then smiled and said, "I don't know about that point. Does Marquis Jiyu believe that this report is fake?" Jiyu Huaijiang paused for a moment. He did indeed have his suspicions. But even if he suspected that the report was fake, they could not sit around and do nothing. As long as there was a 1 in 10,000 chance of it being real, they would need to mobilize their forces. Yin Shuo said, "His Majesty has made a decision on this matter. Regardless of whether it's real or fake, we must send a general from the capital to defend the border. Lord Marquis Jiyu, what do you think?" Jiyu Huaijiang did not know whether this was real or fake, nor did he know if Yin Shuo had some ulterior motive, but leaving the capital to go to the border might not be a bad idea. When away, the general would not need to wait for orders from the ruler, and as long as they could find a way to bring Yu Fu to the border, even if Ning Chengji refused to give up, he would be powerless to do anything about it. Jiyu Huaijiang said, "Since His Majesty has ordered it, this Marquis will not hesitate to move out. Lord Marquis Jiyu has misunderstood." Yin Shuo smiled and said, "His Majesty means for the eldest young sir to go on this expedition. All other members of Marquis Gu's manor must remain in the capital, and none are permitted to leave." Jiyu Shubai had already reached the age where he could be independent. Jiyu Huaijiang could feel completely at ease with having him go on his own, but Ning Chengji specifically naming him made the situation appear quite odd. This is clearly a go at eldest brother. His Majesty is definitely trying to harm eldest brother because he couldn't marry little Yu Fu. Once the decree reached Marquis Gu's manor, a commotion broke out. No matter what was said, they did not want Jiyu Shubai to set out on his own. Jiyu Juji picked up the scroll and read through it. "As I see it, this report is fake. We all know very clearly whether or not Western Kuan has the power to sustain another war. There must be some sort of conspiracy here. That's right, eldest brother. You absolutely must not go. What conspiracy was this?" It was clearly a scheme to put Jiyu Shubai in danger. Jiyu Huaijiang said, "All right, stop shouting. Regardless of whether it's a conspiracy or whether it's real or not, as long as there is a possibility of a battle breaking out on the border, the Jiyu family's army cannot hesitate. Emperor Kuan's plans are profound, and his ambition is even greater. It's possible that he has transferred troops from somewhere else, or he has assembled all of his country's troops for this attack. It's hard to say." Yu Fu said, "Even so, why have eldest brother go on his own? It must be because I rejected His Majesty. No, I absolutely cannot let them succeed. Little Yu Fu, what are you planning?" Everyone was worried that she might do something reckless in her panic. Yu Fu had always been composed, but she pushed Jiu Yi's hand away. Don't worry. I won't go into the palace to seek out His Majesty. Even if I did, it would be pointless. His Majesty is currently furious, so he probably won't be willing to listen. Then what do you plan on doing? Yu Fu suddenly curled her lips into a faint smile. Right now, the most pressing matter is to find out if this report is real or not. If it's real, it must be dealt with properly. If it's fake, we deal with it another way. Everyone had been wanting to ask her how they would determine if it was real or not, but they heard Jiu Shubai say with a smile, "Are you going to ask the deity of medicine to step in? Immortals Valley's disciples are spread across the entire continent. If you want to find out the truth about something, it shouldn't be difficult." Everyone felt suddenly enlightened. Right, with Immortals Valley, was there any concern about finding out the truth of this matter? Beauty in White, Part 1. Beauty in White, Part 1. After sending out a message using Immortals Valley special channels, a mysterious guest visited Marquis Gu's manor within 5 days. At this time, only 1 day remained until the imperial decree had stated Jiu Shubai was to set out for the border. Everyone had been anxiously waiting for this. The straight-laced soldiers standing in front of the Marquis Manor's gates suddenly smelled a faint fragrance in the air. It seemed to be the smell of a woman's makeup. The only women in Marquis Gu's manor were those residing in the western wing, and none of them wore such heavy makeup. Where was this smell coming from? Very shortly after this, the group saw a slender beauty dressed in a fluttery, white dress walk in their direction. The fragrance seemed to be coming from her. When she arrived outside of Marquis Gu's manor, she saw the ground covered in a golden light. Looking more closely, she found that it had all been shattered. I thought that Marquis Gu's manor was so wealthy that there was a mountain of gold and silver outside of their gate. Who knew that it would all be stuff that had been shattered? Ha! It's such a pitiful end for such nice things. The woman squatted next to the pile, her face hidden by a layer of white gauze, which made it hard to see her expression. Based on her tone, it could be guessed that she had a look of regret. She picked around the shattered bits, seeming to pick up some jade shards to use for jewelry. The guards finally reacted, shouting at her, "Miss, those things can't be touched." The woman heard the voice and angrily glanced at them. Her gaze was really piercing like a dagger. "What, can I not take a piece or two of the things that you don't even want?" One of the soldiers stepped forward to dissuade her. "Miss, it's not that we aren't willing to give it to you. These are all imperial gifts. Though they have been smashed, we are worried that you would end up in trouble if you took some, so it would be best to not take them." The woman laughed sweetly and teasingly approached the soldier, saying with a smile, "But I don't have any money to buy accessories. Brother, could it be that you're willing to buy some accessories for me?" The soldier was stunned, immediately breaking out into a blush and taking a few steps back. "Miss, please have some self-respect." "Hee." The woman's charming voice broke out into a hearty laugh, as she looked at that soldier. "What is it? Could it be that I am ugly, and that's why you don't want to buy me some accessories?" The young soldier wore a stubborn and serious expression. "The most beautiful girl in the world is our Princess Zhenjiang. Though Miss is wearing a veil, it's clear that you are very beautiful, but you can't compare with our Princess Zhenjiang. Miss, if you don't have any business here, please leave." The woman's elegant eyebrows were raised, as she nearly spat out the word bullshit. She was the most beautiful woman in the world. How could some princess be more beautiful than her? No, Yu Fu's title in Eastern Ling seemed to have been Princess Zhenjiang. This soldier was saying that Yu Fu was the most beautiful girl in the world. The girl thought quickly and recalled when Yu Fu had been just a tiny toddler. Though she had been exceptionally adorable, she was still just a child. Who knew what she looked like now? The woman jutted out her chin and continued speaking in her charming voice. "The princess that you speak of, she is currently residing at this manor, right? I'll go and see just how beautiful she really is. Is Marquis Gu's manor just some place Miss can trespass into?" The soldier that had been speaking with her suddenly shouted and reached out to block her path. Who knew that the woman would gently grab his extended hand and throw him over her shoulder? The seemingly weak woman was actually extremely strong. The guards nearby immediately became alert, while one person quickly went inside to report. Yang Zheng exited through the gate. "Miss, why have you hurt one of the Jiyu family's army soldiers?" The woman proudly stepped on the soldier that she had thrown. "I came to cause trouble. Come and fight me." The group had been holding back on account of her being a female and had not acted directly. Seeing her act so provocatively, they could no longer concern themselves with such things. As Yang Zheng shouted, "Impudence! Guards, capture her!" The woman pulled out a sword from somewhere and started moving quickly. "I want to see how powerful the Jiyu family's army really is." The two sides quickly started fighting. The woman was light and elegant, and the more Yang Zheng watched, the more he felt that something was wrong. This form looked very familiar. It looked like what Tian Shu had taught them. Could it be that this woman was from Immortals Valley, or had she learned the martial arts taught by Immortals Valley? Just as the soldiers were about to be defeated by the woman, a man's figure soared out from the gate, and his sword met with the woman's. The woman's voice was filled with excitement. "Finally, the main attraction has come." The two exchanged more than a dozen blows, and as the fight was becoming more and more fierce, Jiyu Shubai suddenly withdrew from the fight. "Hold on." The woman laughed and said, "What, do you not dare keep fighting?" Seeing how handsome this young man was and how sharp his features were, she truly could not bring herself to trouble him. Marquis Gu's manor was truly a magnificent place. For such a handsome young man to come out so casually, it was no wonder Yu Fu did not want to return to Immortals Valley. Jiyu Shubai tossed his sword to Yang Zheng, and he cupped his hands and bowed deeply toward the woman. Yang Zheng and the others were stunned, as he said, "Senior disciple sister has traveled a great distance. Please come inside." Senior disciple sister? The young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor had Jiyu Huijiang as their master. Where would a senior disciple sister come from? Yang Zheng was confused and suddenly remembered something, loudly saying, "This is young Miss Yu Fu's senior disciple sister?" Jiyu Shubai nodded. With a clang, the woman put her sword away. Only now could everyone see that the woman's sword strapped to her waist. If it had not been unsheathed, nobody would have known that she was carrying a sword. They would have thought that she was just some frail woman. This led to them suffering a defeat. The woman rolled her eyes. Even when doing this sort of action, she still looked very charming. "How did you recognize me? That's not fun at all." Jiyu Shubai smiled and said, "When Tian Shu came last time, he taught us the techniques of Immortals Valley. We didn't just train in the Jiyu family's techniques but also trained on those techniques. After exchanging some blows with senior disciple sister, I could determine that you are even stronger than Tian Shu. You definitely could not have reached such a level from training with someone else." The corners of the woman's lips faintly curled up. Only now did she remove the veil covering her face. Her bright red lips were as enticing as a flame. If Yu Fu was an exquisitely carved mountain spring, then the woman in front of them was a red peony of unmatched brilliance. The group was a bit shocked by this sight, as they heard the woman say, "You seem to have a bit of awareness, being able to realize that my technique is greater than that brat Tian Shu's within a dozen exchanges. It's no wonder you could fight me to a draw." Jiyu Shubai humbly said, "Senior disciple sister is being modest. Within 50 exchanges, I would surely have been at a disadvantage." The woman smiled and said, "My name is Yu Hu. Who are you? There's no need to keep calling me senior disciple sister. I am Yu Fu's senior disciple sister. Do not try to benefit from Immortals Valley." How many people on this continent wanted to become disciples at Immortals Valley? Calling her senior disciple sister would not come so easily. Yang Zheng hastily said, "Immortal Yu Hu, this is the eldest young sir of our Marquis Gu's manor. Young Miss Yu Fu is his fiancée. You're Jiyu Shubai?" Yu Hu's eyes suddenly lit up. Without any restraint, she stepped forward and started to pull Jiyu Shubai back and forth, looking him over from every angle. She then felt his back and checked out his face. After looking at him closely, she could not find the slightest fault with his appearance. Yu Hu was astonished. She initially thought that she was the most beautiful person on the continent, but after leaving home, she found that the world was vast. This Jiyu Shubai had exceptional looks, and his skill in martial arts was quite good. He was truly suited to Yu Fu. Yang Zheng and the others watched this in a stunned shock. Yu Hu's unrestrained actions were truly shocking to the etiquette-focused people of Eastern Ling. How could there be a girl that would pull and tug on a man in public? Immortal Yu Hu, you can't do this. He is our young Miss Yu Fu's fiancé. Yang Zheng desperately tried to get between the two, pulling Yu Hu's hands from Jiyu Shubai's body with a vigilant look on his face. Jiyu Shubai did not have much of a reaction, allowing Yu Hu's hands to move freely while maintaining a smile on his face. Yang Zheng glared at him without any consideration for dignity. Young general, don't forget about your status. The corners of Jiyu Shubai's lips twitched, wanting to explain to Yang Zheng, but he could not directly tell him the truth that Yu Hu was a man. He had no choice but to allow Yang Zheng's mind to wander. After a bit of thought, he finally said, Yang Zheng, who do you serve? In the past, you would refer to Yu Fu as young madam in front of her, but you're now treating me like an outsider. Yang Zheng thought about it for a bit. What was this about outsiders? Yu Fu and Jiyu Shubai were both members of Marquis Gu's manor. He straightened his neck. Naturally, I serve the Jiyu family's army, but I don't care. Aside from young Miss Yu Fu, nobody is allowed to try and seduce young general. Yu Hu burst out laughing. Jiyu Shubai's evaluation had improved by 3 points. Based on his reaction, it was clear that he could tell that she was a man. That was why he allowed her to touch him freely, but he did not tell anyone else. Yu Hu turned around and grabbed Yang Zheng's hand. What are you standing around for? Why haven't you taken me to see your young Miss Yu Fu? Senior disciple sister? Yu Fu saw Yu Hu appear before her and did not dare believe it. Hasn't master gone to study in seclusion? Why has senior disciple sister left the valley on your own? As the head disciple under Zun Kai, when Zun Kai secluded himself, all of Immortals Valley's matters were handled by Yu He. If she had left Immortals Valley, Yu Fu could not help but worry that something had happened in Immortals Valley. Yu Hu was too preoccupied to answer her question. She just stared blankly at Yu Fu, resting her pointed chin in her palms. Are you still our little Yu Fu? Aren't you a little too beautiful? She staggered forward and tried to hug Yu Fu, but Jiyu Shubai immediately stepped forward to get between the two. Knowing that Yu Hu was actually a man, Jiyu Shubai would not allow him to hug Yu Fu. Yu Fu was no longer the little girl that she had been in the past. Yu Hu continued to look at Yu Fu from behind Jiyu Shubai. A girl undergoing countless changes while maturing really isn't a lie. You are now the most beautiful person from Immortals Valley. Senior disciple sister is willing to bow down in defeat. Yu Fu helplessly said, Senior disciple sister, it's a serious situation, yet you still have the heart to say this sort of thing. Why have you come from Immortals Valley? Yu Hu finally sat down and boldly crossed her legs without any consideration for how a beauty would sit. Isn't it because of you? We have caught wind of a new dynasty in Eastern Ling, and we heard that the newly appointed little Emperor Ning wants to make you the Empress. Ha ha ha. Yu Hu rocked back and forth with laughter. Jiyu Juji and the others looked at her with solemn expressions. Only then did she finally calm down a little. Don't misunderstand, I am not taking joy in others' misfortune. I am laughing at that worthless little Emperor Ning. He's not even on the same level as his father, so how could he have the courage to want to marry you? Ha ha ha. Though she said that she was not delighting in others' misfortune, everyone felt that she was doing just that. Jiyu Yi pouted and said to Yu Fu, Little Yu Fu, is your senior disciple sister reliable? It just looks like she came to laugh at us. What are you saying, brat? Yu Hu instantly stood up from her seat and moved to Jiyu Yi's side, pinching his cheeks. In that instant, Jiyu Yi felt that he was seeing Zun Kai with that sort of unfathomable technique. It was no wonder she was considered the head disciple of Immortals Valley. Jiyu Yi grimaced and begged for mercy. I was wrong, senior disciple sister. I shouldn't have suspected your skills. You're even stronger than Tian Shu. Yu Hu snorted and let go of his cheeks. Of course, I'm stronger than Tian Shu. It's like this. We were worried that you would be in danger in Eastern Ling, thus I left Immortals Valley's matters to Tian Shu and personally came to protect you. When I got here, I gave the guard a beating, But that can't be blamed on me. It was Tian Shu who told me to check if you have been training properly or not. Tian Shu, that brat, only knows how to leave offending others to me. Yu Hu angrily muttered, and Yu Fu hastily said, "You already have news? Is Western Kuan really able to form a new army to attack Eastern Ling?" Yu Hu shook her head, "You're being misled. Western Kuan has indeed issued an edict conscripting more soldiers, but anyone with any knowledge of military matters understands. How can newly conscripted soldiers have any chance of winning a battle? I think that there must be someone from Eastern Ling's court colluding with Western Kuan and deliberately spreading misinformation." Jiyu Shubai said, "It's no wonder the spies that we sent to Western Kuan can't tell whether or not Western Kuan truly intends to send out troops. At first, I felt that it was strange that Western Kuan would suddenly decide to launch an attack shortly after the matter of appointing an empress became heated. Thinking about it now, someone is hoping to use this to divide our Marquis Gu's manor." As for who this person was, everyone tacitly understood. Yu Fu recalled the assassination attempt that had taken place in Changju. If Yin Shuo is colluding with Western Kuan, there are only two possibilities. 1. They plan to act when eldest brother is on his way to the border. Ji Yu Xiong said, and the second? Yu Hu rebuffed him, the second is to lure the tiger away from the mountain cave. Over these years, most of Marquis Gu's manor's external affairs have been given to the eldest young sir to handle. Once the eldest young sir has left the capital, it will be easier to deal with Marquis Gu's manor. Yu Fu nodded, agreeing with Yu Hu's explanation. Everyone looked at Yu Hu in shock, and the latter smiled. "I did my research before coming. Did you really think that I would dare to come and claim to help without knowing anything?" Here was another person who looked flippant but was actually very careful. Jiyu Hanmo stared blankly at Yu Hu. This was the senior disciple brother whom Tian Shu had mentioned. His gaze went from Yu Hu's face down to her chest where there were some slight curves. Yu Hu stared at him suspiciously and found that his gaze continued down her arm and to her fingertips. Her fingers were pale and slender, full of feminine tenderness and affection. He had looked her over and could not see any sign of her being a man, aside from the slightly unrestrained way in which she sat today. Yu Hu coughed a couple of times, and Jiyu Hanmo immediately retracted his gaze, a little flustered. This one was rude. "It's fine. You're the Jiyu Hanmo that Tian Shu spoke of? He said that you are a good friend of his." Jiyu Hanmo nodded slightly. "Yuan." He was still not too accustomed to dealing with men who dressed like women. He did not know if he should treat the other side as a woman and maintain a proper distance, or if he should treat the other side as a man and be more informal. Yu Hu turned to look at Jiyu Shubai once more. "What are your current plans? Will eldest young sir be setting out for battle?" Jiyu Shubai said, "Setting out for battle is something that must be done. His Majesty is currently waiting for a chance to cut down Marquis Gu's manor. If I refuse to set out, it will give him that chance. Fortunately, with senior disciple sister here to help, even if they want to plot against Marquis Gu's manor, someone will be here to protect Yu Fu." Yu Fu stood up and said, "You shouldn't be worried about them plotting against Marquis Gu's manor. At the very least, we will all be together. Regardless of what happens, we can look after each other. You will be going to the border on your own, and they will have countless opportunities. This is what I'm truly worried about." Seeing the two thinking about each other, Yu Hu let out an aunt-like smile. "There's no need for you to worry about that." A voice suddenly came from the door. Everyone turned to look, as Jiyu Huijiang walked into the room. Taking note of his dignified bearing and calm demeanor, Yu Hu immediately stood up to greet him. Jiyu Huijiang kindly motioned for her to sit back down to continue speaking. "The late emperor's decree is still in effect. Shubai will set out for battle tomorrow and will be bringing 1,000 soldiers. That should be enough protection." 1,000 soldiers? Everyone was exceedingly shocked. Jiyu Huijiang had fought in battles all over for many decades, yet he had never brought so many troops along with him. Mobilizing 1,000 troops from around the capital, one could clearly imagine the sort of effect it would have on the capital. Even at the peak of his influence, Jiyu Huijiang had never done something that would stand out so much. Now, for the sake of Jiyu Shubai's safety, he was not going to consider anything else. Everyone understood his feelings as a father, and Jiyu Shubai said, "Father, Marquis Gu's manor is currently on the cusp of a storm. This absolutely must not be done." Vent for you guys, Part 2. Vent for you guys, Part 2. Father, don't worry. Son will definitely be able to take care of myself. As long as I can reach the border, I will be on the Jiyu family's army's territory. His Majesty won't be able to reach me. Jiyu Huijiang had already made up his mind, raising his hand for him to stop. Yin Shuo is someone with unfathomable ideas. There's no need to tell father too much. If he intends to make an attempt on your life, he won't give you a chance to survive until the border. The only choice was to bring enough soldiers to provide Jiyu Shubai with a force that would stand out. Unless Yin Shuo wanted to rebel, it would be impossible to go against 1,000 of the Jiyu family's army soldiers. Even if His Majesty personally wanted to dispatch a group large enough to combat this force of 1,000, it would be impossible. This was indeed the best way to protect Jiyu Shubai. Yu Fu immediately made her stance clear. "I agree with Head General. It's because Marquis Gu's manor is on the cusp of a storm that we need to ensure everyone's safety." This was the first time that Yu Fu and Jiyu Shubai had opposing opinions, and the latter helplessly looked at her. The little girl was no longer completely attached to him, and this made him feel a little dejected. She, on the other hand, was opposing him because she was worried about his safety. This made his dejection turn into an indescribable feeling. Jiyu Juji and the others also said, "Let's go with father's arrangements. Eldest brother, don't keep refusing. Even if we don't do anything, His Majesty and Yin Shuo won't let us off easily. It would be better to just go ahead with this." Yu Hu also agreed, saying, "That's right. Your Marquis Gu's manner is overly cautious, which makes you more susceptible to being controlled by others. If you had my temper." She only got halfway through her sentence before giving up. Immortals Valley was an otherworldly area. They could act without being restrained by etiquette, but Marquis Gu's manner was completely different. Speaking of things like this, Immortals Valley was quite nice. Though Marquis Gu's manor had many beautiful men, it also had many restraints, and this caused Yu Fu much grief. The next day before dawn, while Yu Hu was still immersed in her dreams, all members of Marquis Gu's manor had already gotten up to send Jiyu Shubai off. 1,000 soldiers from the Jiyu family's army formed an orderly line outside of Marquis Gu's manor's gates and waited for him. The long procession extended for 2 whole blocks. Some of the citizens that woke up early were shocked to see such a large army, and they were given a fright. Looking more closely, they were carrying the Jiyu family's army's banners. This allowed their hearts to return to their chests. Yu Fu accompanied him out of the main gates. "I have ordered 200 of my personal guards to follow along 20 li behind your group. If something happens, you will have some support." Jiyu Shubai refused this help. "I have 1,000 troops at my side. What is there to worry about? Keeping them here to protect you is what's most important." Yu Fu handed him the military tally for her personal guards. "I have absolutely no use for them in the capital, and they have been maintained by the Ministry of War. The only time that they have been used was to quell the unrest in the capital. Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used once. It's now time to make use of them. This tally will be given to you. Do not give it back." Jiyu Shubai was helpless against her. "You need to take care of yourself in the capital. Regardless of when it is, you must remember what I said. Protecting yourself is most important." Yu Fu understood what he was implying and pretended to comply. "Head General has said this same thing countless times. I already know it, so don't worry." Jiyu Shubai looked up at the sky. "It's time to set out. If we leave any later, the sun will be up, and there will be even more of a commotion." He did not have high hopes of being able to lead all 1,000 of his soldiers out of the capital before the sun came up. He just hoped that he would cause as little trouble for Yu Fu and the others as possible. He would be going to a distant place where the emperor held little sway, while Yu Fu and the others that were staying behind would truly be the ones in danger. Yu Fu handed him a bottle of medicine. "If you encounter any danger, This medicine will be able to keep you alive. I just hope that you won't end up needing this medicine. Jiyu Shubai tightly held the bottle and looked at her with reluctance. In the end, he quickly turned around and mounted his horse, departing without looking back. He was worried that if he did look, he would no longer be able to bring himself to leave. The procession of 1,000 soldiers quietly followed behind him. The Jiyu family's army was famed for its discipline, and the city guards only noticed the army when they reached the city gates. They were so frightened that they nearly pissed their pants. Jiyu Shubai pulled out the tiger tally from the late emperor, opened the gate. The city guards were truly fortunate, being able to see the tiger tally for a second time. They hastily ran forward to open the city gates. Watching the long procession depart, some could not help but wonder, the last time that we saw this scene, there was an attempted assassination of the eldest young sir of Marquis Gu's manor. Who knows what sort of situation happened this time? After the sun came up, news quickly reached the imperial palace that 1,000 soldiers from the Jiyu family's army had followed Jiyu Shubai to battle. Ning Chengji's bruised eyelid twitched, only managing to react after a long pause. Our decree said that nobody from Marquis Gu's manor could go with him, but it did not say that soldiers could not accompany him. Marquis Jiyu still has the tiger tally left behind by the late emperor. He has the right to mobilize a large number of troops without informing the Ministry of War, and it wouldn't be considered as going against our decree. Eunuch Kai said, "There's no need for your majesty to worry. It's just 1,000 soldiers, and they are going to the border." When Marquis Gu's heir was attacked last time, Marquis Jiyu also acted in such a way. It's not the same. Ning Chengji gingerly said, "Last time, Jiyu Shubai's life was hanging by a thread, thus Marquis Jiyu acted out in a moment of anxiety. Immediately after that, he entered the palace to explain his actions to the late emperor. We recall that very clearly. At that time, he only mobilized 300 troops, yet Marquis Jiyu was apologetic. He waited outside of the palace gates before the sun even came up. Meng Fei from the Imperial Guards wanted to open up the gates early to let him into the palace, yet he refused. He lay in bed and craned his neck to look outside of the palace, and this time? Has Marquis Jiyu come to see us? Eunuch Kai said with difficulty, "The palace gates have just opened. It's possible that Marquis Jiyu has come late." Ning Chengji was greatly displeased, feeling that his dignity as a ruler had been trampled on. He mobilized 3 or 4 times more troops than the last time, yet he didn't come to explain to us. What does this mean? It means that he only has the late emperor in his heart and not us. This is truly outrageous. Just as he said this, a palace servant entered to reporting to your majesty, Princess Zhenjiang has come requesting an audience. What? Ning Chengji's expression immediately changed, turning from anger to joy. Say it again. Yu Fu came to request an audience. The palace servant bowed and said, "Yes, will your majesty see her?" "Nonsense, of course, we will." Ning Chengji immediately lifted his blanket to get up. Arriving in front of the mirror, he saw how swollen his face was and became incredibly anxious. No, how can we see her looking like this? He was already less handsome than Jiyu Shubai, and now his face had been hurt to this degree. He was now even worse than Jiyu Shubai. Wouldn't Yu Fu dislike him even more? Eunuch Kai blushed with shame. "Your Majesty, your injuries were caused by Princess Zhenjiang. Are you worried that she would mind your appearance?" Only now could Ning Chengji finally start to accept it. "Quickly help us get washed up and changed. Do you want us to see them while wearing this?" Idiot. Eunuch Kai had been scolded for no reason, but he immediately bowed and adjusted his expression, muttering, "Your Majesty sees officials like this all the time. Who knew that you would be so particular when seeing Princess Zhenjiang? What did you say?" Ning Chengji glanced sideways at him, and Eunuch Kai immediately smiled and said, "This servant was saying that your Majesty being so particular when seeing Princess Zhenjiang will surely make Princess Zhenjiang feel very moved." These words reminded Ning Chengji, and he unhappily said, "Yu Fu might have come to explain the matter behind the 1,000 soldiers. We can't get angry. It would be best to be lenient. Only like that would Yu Fu feel moved. What do you think?" Eunuch Kai smiled and handed him a towel that had been soaked in warm water. Yes, 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 Your Majesty is brilliant. Everything that you said is correct. Senior disciple sister, I came to explain to His Majesty, not to provoke him. You absolutely must pay attention to your actions later. Yu Fu stood outside the hall and spoke in a quiet voice to the beautiful woman at her side. The palace servant standing guard outside could not help but sneak glances at this beauty. When did Marquis Gu's manor get another beauty? This beauty was completely different from Princess Xinjiang's. With the two standing together, one was like the bright moonlight in the heavens, while the other was like a gorgeous flower. It was hard for people to look away from them. Yu Hu faintly raised an eyebrow and smiled affectionately and slyly. Don't worry. I'm just going in to observe. While I'm at it, I will take the chance to see what that fool is like. I won't get in the way of your business. Yu Fu helplessly said, Senior disciple sister, it would have been better if you had come a few days earlier. Based on your personality, you would surely have been able to infuriate His Majesty so much that he would no longer want to marry me. Yu Hu took this as a compliment, winking at her. Really? Am I that amazing? Just as Yu Fu was about to respond, she saw Eunuch Kai come out of the palace and freeze upon seeing Yu Hu. This servant greets princess. This is my senior disciple sister, immortal practitioner of medicine Yu Hu. Eunuch Kai respectfully bowed, so it was an immortal practitioner of medicine. His Majesty invites you in. Please follow this servant in. He stepped to the side and then took the lead, maintaining a respectful attitude. Yu Fu found that ever since she had smashed the gifts that he had delivered to Marquis Gu's manor, his attitude toward her was respectful but very distant and alert. It was like when an old mouse saw a cat. Yu Hu also noticed this, leaning close to Yu Fu and whispering into her ear, What did you do to him? Look at how carefully he's treading. It's as if you're going to eat him. It's a long story. The two entered the inner hall and saw a man in bright yellow robes seated upright on the bed. His figure was dignified, but his face was covered with injuries that made him look like a pig. Yu Hu burst out laughing. This is little Emperor Ning. This was a result of your beating. On the night that Yu Fu hit him, she could not tell just how badly she had beaten him. Looking at him closely, she was given a fright. Ning Chengji heard Yu Hu's words and only found out that it was a beauty with great charm after looking more closely. For a moment, he was surprised. Yu Fu, this is? Yu Fu dragged Yu Hu forward to salute him. Your Majesty, this is my senior disciple sister, Yu Hu. She was passing through Eastern Ling, thus she came to see me. Yu Hu also said, That's right. This one has carried out much research into improving one's appearance and can help the injuries to Your Majesty's face heal faster. Does Your Majesty require this? An odd feeling filled Ning Chengji's chest. Why did this girl not refer to herself as this one and not this humble girl? Hearing Yu Hu say that she could help his facial injuries heal faster, he stopped worrying about everything else. Very good, very good. If you can help our face heal faster, we shall reward you generously. If I treat Your Majesty's facial injuries, shouldn't Your Majesty also reward me generously and allow me to act as I please in Eastern Ling? Yu Hu said this and was about to step forward but was pulled back by Yu Fu, senior disciple sister. What did you promise me? The latter tilted her head back and thought for a bit. She had promised Yu Fu that she would not get in her way, and she would keep her promise. She would step back for now. Yu Fu stepped forward and said, Replying to Your Majesty, this younger sister came into the palace today to report to Your Majesty. 1,000 soldiers from the Jiyu family's army have accompanied the eldest young sir to participate in battle, and they set out first thing this morning. Ning Chengji was about to do Yu Fu a favor but heard Yu Fu continue, though head general has the tiger tally from the late emperor and can mobilize a large number of troops without needing to report to the Ministry of War, mobilizing troops is an important matter. As a result, this younger sister came into the palace to report on head general's behalf. She had already said this much. Could Ning Chengji still be unhappy? Being unhappy would mean that he opposed the late emperor's decree, and that would mean deliberately making things difficult for Marquis Gu's manor. Not only could he not be unhappy, but he also needed to act as if it was completely natural. Very well, we already know. Marquis Gu has the late Emperor's tiger tally, thus he has the right to mobilize troops. We have no objections. With him having said this, Yu Fu's visit to the palace had accomplished its goal. She slightly nodded and took a step back. Yu Hu stepped forward while swaying her hips, a charming look resting on her face. The sight of this caused Ning Chengji to freeze. Your Majesty, you still haven't answered me. If I treated you, what sort of reward would you give me? Yu Fu lowered her head and secretly laughed. She thought to herself that Yu Hu's bad habits were resurfacing. She then thought that it would be nice if Ning Chengji really was seduced by her, as that would save her a lot of trouble. Ning Chengji quickly looked at Yu Fu. He could barely shift his butt an inch to try and create some distance between himself and Yu Hu. Immortal practitioner of medicine, please. Please have some self-respect. Yu Hu rolled her eyes and decided to just sit down next to Ning Chengji. What self-respect? I have relied on my beauty to act as I please in Immortals Valley, and it has only been 2 days since I've come to your Eastern Ling, yet I have already heard that phrase countless times. Will you let people live a little? Not to mention the fact that Ning Chengji had never met such an audacious woman before, but even Eunuch Kai was stunned by this sight. He initially wanted to remind her that sitting next to His Majesty was against the rules of etiquette, but after glancing at Yu Fu, he swallowed his words. This was Yu Fu's senior disciple sister. She could do as she pleased. Either way, His Majesty would not dare do anything about it. What would a lowly eunuch like him be considered? Yu Fu, say something. Ning Chengji pleaded with Yu Fu. Yu Fu covered her mouth and coughed. This younger sister has not come into the palace for a long time and wants to see the imperial garden. This younger sister will be going first. When senior disciple sister has finished treating your Majesty, we will leave the palace together. Saying this, she bowed and then retreated from the hall. She left Ning Chengji behind to repeatedly talk about self-respect. It was as if Yu Hu was about to take advantage of him. Yu Fu strolled around the imperial garden for a short time before a palace servant came to report that Yu Hu had finished performing the treatment. The two met at the palace gate and left together. Yu Hu was incensed. Yu Fu, you've already grown up so much. Do you think that senior disciple sister has gotten old? Yu Fu was surprised and said, what is senior disciple sister talking about? You are still the most beautiful person in Immortals Valley. Stop trying to comfort me. Yu Hu had always cherished her beauty. Sitting in the carriage, she looked at her reflection in the mirror from all angles. The beauty in the mirror was charming and affectionate but also pitiable. She unhappily said, the people of Marquis Gu's manor have seen too much of you, so it's fine if they don't have much of a reaction to my beauty, but even that worthless Ning Chengji has a defense against my beauty. It seems that I need to take care of protecting my skin when I get back to Immortals Valley. Yu Fu said, senior disciple sister is overthinking it. Right, you treated His Majesty's face, but what did he reward you with? Yu Hu delightedly said, naturally, I wanted the most useful thing. Look at this. She pulled a token out of her sleeve. Yu Fu took a close look. It turned out to be a token that allowed her to freely enter the palace or visit places that normal people would find difficult to enter. She smiled and said, with this token, if Marquis Gu's manor's military rights are no longer valid, and even your authority as princess can no longer be used, at the very least, we will still have a guaranteed escape from the capital. Yu Fu hastily said, Marquis Gu's manor is here. I won't go anywhere. If such a day really comes, senior disciple sister should leave on your own. Foolish girl, what sort of foolish things are you saying? Yu Hu did not continue to speak on that topic, lifting the curtain to look outside. This isn't the road back to Marquis Gu's manor. Where are we going? Yu Fu said, to the Prime Minister's manor. I have a friend whose face has suffered an injury. Senior disciple sister, please help them out. A friend? Male or female? It's the young miss of the Prime Minister's manor. Her name is Jiao. The disciples of Immortals Valley have always loved Yu Fu. When Yu Hu heard that it was her friend, it was natural that it became her duty. She repeatedly agreed while carefully thinking about the information that she had on Eastern Ling's Prime Minister's manor. She suddenly cast a suspicious look at Yu Fu. This Prime Minister's manor, is it that Yin Shuo's Prime Minister's manor? I recall that the Prime Minister's manor has always fervently opposed Marquis Gu's manor. What's the relationship between Yin Jiaro and Yin Shuo? Yu Fu said, Jiaro is Yin Shuo's younger sister from another mother. She is a good girl and is different from her father and elder brother. Senior disciple sister, please do everything possible to treat her. Yu Fu would be extremely grateful. Yu Hu nodded upon hearing this. Then it's fine. Since we are going to the Prime Minister's manor, this trip can't be wasted. Just watch me take good care of Yin Shuo to vent for you guys. Like Jiyu Shubai a little more, Part 1. Like Jiyu Shubai a little more, Part 1. The carriage stopped in front of the Prime Minister's manor. Seeing the bright yellow sign on the carriage, the servant from the Prime Minister's manor immediately stepped forward to receive them. Not knowing that Princess Zhenjiang would be visiting, we could not prepare a welcome in advance. This servant has already sent someone to report to Master. Princess, please come inside to sit and wait for a while. Yu Fu thought for a bit but did not follow him inside. Coming without being invited was rude of me. We can wait here for a while. Yu Hu secretly observed the expressions of the servants from the Prime Minister's manor. It did not look like they were receiving the daughter of a rival family, and they were treating her with even more respect than was due to a princess. It seemed that Yu Fu's name carried great weight in Eastern Ling's court scene. Even the Prime Minister's manor did not dare to treat her with any disrespect. Not long later, they saw a handsome man personally come out to receive them. He warmly cupped his hands and greeted Yu Fu, and Yu Fu nodded in response, explaining to Yu Hu, senior disciple sister, this is the former Prime Minister of Eastern Ling and current leader of the cabinet, Lord Yin. Yin Shuo heard Yu Fu refer to the person at her side as senior disciple sister and was surprised, so it was an immortal practitioner of medicine. Please excuse me for not coming out to welcome you sooner. Yu Hu looked at him with a smile, her eyes filled with dangerous intent. No worries, no worries. Cabinet leader Yin is young and handsome with outstanding abilities. This one has heard of you since long ago. Heard that you were a total bastard who is rotten to the core. It was a complete waste of such good looks. Yin Shuo felt a little uneasy from being stared at so closely, but he could not say anything to object on account of her being Yu Fu's senior disciple sister. Immortal practitioner of medicine is being too kind. Please come inside. After saying this, he stepped to the side and then retreated next to Yu Fu. His voice then instantly became softer. For you to personally come today, is something the matter? He knew that Yu Fu would not visit the Prime Minister's manor for no reason. Yu Hu's ears perked up. Even if Yin Shuo had done an excellent job of concealing it, she still immediately noticed that his voice was gentler. They had just left Ning Chengji, who treated her with absolute respect, and they had now arrived at Yin Shuo, who was profoundly affectionate. Could it be said that all noble and influential people in Eastern Ling liked Yu Fu? Yu Fu took a step back to create some space between her and Yin Shuo. I came today with senior disciple sister to see Jiao. Senior disciple sister is an immortal practitioner of medicine, and she is far better at treating facial injuries than I am. I was just thinking that if I could take this chance to have senior disciple sister treat her injuries, things might change. Yin Shuo's expression immediately became stoic once more. He initially thought that Yu Fu had come looking for him, but it turned out that he had overthought it. He would rather have Yu Fu come and accuse him of being responsible for the decree sending Jiyu Shubai to battle than for her to not even think of him. Princess Danyang heard that Yu Fu had come to the manor and immediately became nervous. Unable to control herself, she ran out to take a look and happened to see Yin Shuo's dejected expression. In her eyes, Yin Shuo had always been arrogant and domineering. He was either cold and distant, or absolutely ruthless. She had thought that Yin Shuo would never express any interest in the feelings of love between men and women, but it turned out that he just never revealed this expression in front of her. In front of the person that he was interested in, he could get heartbroken and dejected. This person was none other than Yu Fu. Yin Shuo waved to the servants and ordered them to bring Yin Jiao out. When he raised his hand, He saw Princess Danyang standing there and immediately frowned with displeasure. He could not say anything too excessive in front of Yu Fu, thus he simply said, "You still haven't fully recovered. There's no need for you to take care of things here. Quickly go back and rest." Princess Danyang faced Yu Fu and Yu Hu. Both of them were dressed in clothes that were without embroideries but were still radiant and attractive. Their beauty made her feel like a wilting flower. She subconsciously took a step back, wanting to hide herself, but the moment that she turned around, her wrist was grabbed. "What illness do you have? Let me see." She turned back in shock. Yu Hu was holding her wrist and frowning. "Oh dear, this illness." Princess Danyang pulled her hand back as if she had been shocked. Worried that her condition would be exposed, she anxiously looked at Yin Shuo. Yin Shuo was also a little nervous, not wanting these things to be exposed in front of Yu Fu. "Immortal practitioner of medicine, if you don't mind, please come inside for some tea." Yin Shuo's expression was solemn, as he gave Princess Danyang a look to have her retreat. Yu Hu pouted and thought to herself that it did not matter if she was treated or not. She could not be bothered with treating her illness. "Yu Fu, who is this person?" "She's Princess Danyang." Yu Fu's voice was a little uncertain. Even after Princess Danyang had left, she did not dare believe that the person whom she had seen was her. In the past, Princess Danyang had been so proud and domineering, so noble and beautiful. Now, she had become a common housewife with a weak expression. She had lost all of her former glory. No matter how radiant the clothes she wore were, she looked like a skeleton with skin draped on it. Just what sort of torture did she have to endure to end up like this? Yu Fu suddenly sneered, "It's fortunate that the one to marry cabinet leader Yin back then wasn't me. Otherwise, I can't even say for certain if I would still be alive today." Yin Shuo, who had been leading the way, felt his back stiffen upon hearing Yu Fu say this. Yin Jiao heard the servants report that Yu Fu had come, thus she happily came out to receive her, but she ended up seeing this scene. She froze in place, while Yu Hu shushed her, motioning for her to not interrupt. Yin Shuo slowly turned around to look at Yu Fu. "You clearly know that if the one I had married was you, I wouldn't be as lonely as I am now. Even if you don't like Princess Danyang, she is still your wife. If a man is capable of doing this to his own wife, how can he have the nerve to talk about love? It's truly contemptible." Yu Fu did not stay with him for a moment longer, turning to walk toward Yin Jiao. "Jiao, I brought my senior disciple sister here to treat your injury." Yin Jiao immediately accepted. "Understood, let's go to my courtyard to speak." The three left, leaving Yin Shuo to remain rooted in place, while he slowly clenched his fists in his sleeves. He could be emotionless when dealing with the people of the world, but Yu Fu was the only person for whom he had any affection. Why could she just not understand this? Yu Hu examined the scar on Yin Jiao's face and then checked her pulse. She was a little shocked. Yin Jiao's heart thunked. "Immortal practitioner of medicine, is it that my injury can no longer be healed?" Yu Hu said, No, I finally understand after seeing your scar why Master likes Yu Fu the most of all my fellow disciples. You are an immortal practitioner of poison, yet you were able to treat young Miss Yin's scar to such a degree. Senior disciple sister is amazed. Master is proficient in both medicine and poison, and I believe that you will also be able to inherit that ability in the future. Yu Fu said, "Senior disciple sister, what sort of situation are we in, yet you're still in the mood to joke around? I just used some prescriptions to remove decaying flesh and promote healing, but Jiro's injury had lingered for too long, and no amount of medicine could completely get rid of the scar. Do you have anything that could work?" Yu Hu helped her dress the injury once more and then shook her head. "The prescription that you used was correct. Even if I tried to treat it, I would use the same prescription." Her injury was not treated in a timely manner and penetrated too deep. No matter how you try to get rid of decayed flesh, it can't deal with the damage to the flesh beneath the skin. Yin Jiao furrowed her brow slightly, feeling a little disappointed. Immortal practitioner of medicine means that even if the skin on the surface is removed and allowed to grow back on its own, it will only grow back as scar tissue. Is that correct? You're very smart. That's exactly what I mean. Yu Fu could not bear to let Yin Jiao feel disappointed and hastily said, Senior disciple sister, you must have a better method than I had, right? Stop keeping us guessing. In her memory, Yu Hu had never been helpless when faced with an illness before. She was the head disciple of Immortals Valley and had followed Zun Kai for the longest. Her medical skills were exquisite. Yu Hu laughed and said, "Very well, there is indeed a way, but it isn't easy." Yin Jiaro heard this, and her eyes immediately lit up. A small glimmer of hope started to burn in her heart. What is the method? Yu Hu said, "The medicine to get rid of scar tissue is easy to obtain, but the medicine to restore muscle and skin is hard to make. There is a medicinal herb that grows in the mountains of northern Li called snow lotus. This is rarely seen once every 100 years. Master had some, but it was used 5 years ago. To get that herb now, we can only rely on luck." Northern Li? Yin Jiao immediately felt as if her hope had fallen through. Northern Li and Eastern Ling have not had any interactions. This snow lotus grows in Northern Li, which already made it hard to get. Add on the fact that it's a rare herb, and that must make it even harder to obtain. Yu Hu saw her pitiful appearance and immediately pulled her into a hug to comfort her. Don't be afraid, little cutie. Don't worry. I promise you that I will do everything possible to help you find it." Yin Jiaro was moved and hugged her back. The two looked like exceptionally close friends. Yu Fu initially wanted to remind Yin Jiaro that Yu Hu was a man, but Yu Hu motioned for her to swallow those words. Forget it. If Yin Jiaro knew that she was hugging a man other than Jiu Juji, she would surely have vomited until she died. It would be better not to tell her. Yin Jiaro and Yu Hu hugged each other for a long time when she suddenly remembered something. "Right, Yu Fu, there's something that I should tell you. This is all my fault." "What is it?" Yin Jiaro guiltily said, "On the night that you hit His Majesty, I accidentally blurted out the fact that eldest brother likes you in a fit of anxiety. Danyang now knows about it. I understand a woman's jealous heart. In the past, I knew that the second young sir liked you, and I was also sick with jealousy. I was all too eager for you to disappear." Yu Hu eagerly listened, her expression showing great interest in the gossip, as she watched Yu Fu with a bright smile. It turned out that Jiu Juji also liked Yu Fu. Her little Yu Fu was really a flower beloved by all. As her senior disciple sister, she felt greatly honored. Yin Jiaro continued, "In the past, Danyang liked the eldest young sir. After finding out that the eldest young sir liked you, her attitude toward you was very bad. Now, she has finally started to like my eldest brother, but she suddenly found out that eldest brother also likes you. If I was her, I would surely feel completely lost and not know what I should do." Yu Hu casually picked up a piece of cantaloupe from the table and started eating. While eating, she listened to Yin Jiaro and Yu Fu gossip. Yu Fu quietly sighed, "I know. Don't worry. Princess Danyang resides in the Prime Minister's manor. She can't hurt me." Yin Jiaro thought about it and felt that it was reasonable. "I just hope that this is the case, but she is still His Majesty's younger sister. It would be best if you were a little more cautious." It was also very difficult for Yin Jiaro to talk about this sort of thing. She and Princess Danyang sympathized with each other, and she had enjoyed Yu Fu's benevolence. She was friends with both sides, thus it was natural that she would not hope for her two friends to become enemies. Yu Fu comforted her a bit, while Yu Hu finished her fourth slice of cantaloupe. She wiped her hands clean with a handkerchief. "Have you two finished chatting? How about you two take your time, and I'll go out for a leisurely stroll?" Just as Yin Jiaro was about to stand up to accompany them, Yu Hu pushed her back down into her seat. "There's no need for you two to come along. I like walking on my own. I'll be back in a moment." Saying this, her figure became a blur, as the door was pushed open, and Yu Hu disappeared. Yin Jiaro was dumbfounded. This is the martial arts taught in Immortals Valley. Yu Fu, do you know how to do it? Yu Fu's little face turned red. She left Immortals Valley at the age of 12, and martial arts was one of her weak points. Yin Jiaro clasped her hands together and enviously said, "Immortal practitioner of medicine Yu Hu is both beautiful and skilled in martial arts. Surely, nobody would dare to bully her if she set foot in Jianghu, right? I really envy her." Yu Fu smiled and said, Naturally, nobody would dare to bully her. It would already be good enough if she didn't bully others. Yu Fu's words were quite accurate. Yu Hu had not gone for a stroll around the Prime Minister's manor. Instead, she had gone to bully someone. After leaving Yin Jiao's courtyard, she casually grabbed someone. "Where is Cabinet Leader Yin?" The servant did not know who she was but guessed that she was an honored guest brought in by Princess Zhenjiang. She was both beautiful and charming, thus he pointed toward the outer study. "The young sir spends his days in the outer study, but the outer study is not a place that can be entered so easily. How about this servant go in and reports for you?" No need, I will go on my own. While I'm at it, I'll go for a stroll around the manor. If your young sir won't let me in, I just won't go in." Saying this, she headed toward the outer study while swaying her hips the entire time. The servant watched her from behind and could not avert his gaze, only leaving with a deep blush on his face a long while later. Yu Hu had never been one to consider another's feelings. Once she had made up her mind to cause trouble, how could she care if Yin Shuo allowed her in or not? She arrived outside of Yin Shuo's outer study with a swagger and was about to head directly inside. The guard standing outside stopped her. "You must be Immortal Practitioner of Medicine, Yu Hu? This is our young sir's study. I'm afraid that Immortal Practitioner of Medicine has taken a wrong turn." Yu Hu lazily fiddled with her fingernails. There was no mistake. "I came looking for your young sir." The guards looked at each other. "Then would Immortal Practitioner of Medicine please wait? This subordinate will go in and report to young sir." "Apologies, I, Yu Hu, have never been one to wait for others." She quietly spoke these words, as she instantly rushed past the guards like a sudden gust of wind. The door to the study was instantly opened wide. Yin Shuo was seated on a sofa and felt a strong gust of wind rushing toward him. By the time he reacted, the woman's slender hand was already wrapped around his throat. "Young sir." The guards reflexively rushed inside and found Yu Hu holding Yin Shuo by the neck. They did not dare take a step forward. "Immortal Practitioner of Medicine, please let our young sir go." Yu Hu ignored them and continued staring at Yin Shuo. "You don't know martial arts, but did you know that if I put a little bit of force into my hands, your head would be separated from your neck?" "I know." Yin Shuo did not panic. His throat was being held by Yu Hu and could barely squeeze out a response. "Since Immortal Practitioner of Medicine did not snap my neck immediately, it's evident that you don't really want to kill me. What is there for me to be afraid of?" Yu Hu seemed to be deliberately wanting to ruin his image, increasing the strength in her grip by a bit. "You're wrong. Our Immortals Valley exists outside of the realm of normal people, and there have never been any rules in place for my actions. I don't like killing people directly because that's no fun. I like toying with my prey the same way that a cat toys with a mouse, and I will leave you begging for the release of death. If you dare to bully Yu Fu, that would be declaring war on our Immortals Valley. From the edge of the world to the ends of the seas, I will come to claim your life." The guards were exceedingly nervous, but they did not know how they should negotiate with this eccentric Immortal Practitioner of Medicine. One person hastily ran off to Yin Jiao's courtyard to look for Yu Fu. Yin Shuo's fair face slowly turned red until it gradually started to turn blue. His eyes bulged wide outside of his control. He refused to believe it. He refused to believe that Yu Hu would kill him on the spot. The people from Immortals Valley did not belong to the world of normal people, but Yu Fu came to Eastern Ling and became involved with Marquis Gu's manor. Could it be that Yu Hu did not mind what was happening between Yu Fu and Marquis Gu's manor? He did not believe it. Just as his mind was starting to become hazy, and just as he was about to run out of air, Yu Hu reduced the strength of her grip, allowing him to breathe momentarily. A contemptuous smile crept onto her beautiful face. "How is it? I told you that I would have you wishing for the release of death." Yin Shuo immediately understood. She was an Immortal Practitioner of Medicine who had studied under Zun Kai. It was natural that she would know how much strength was necessary to kill someone, and she knew when to ease her grip to increase his suffering while allowing him to continue living. The idea of living being worse than being dead truly did apply. Yin Shuo's voice was hoarse. "Immortal Practitioner of Medicine's martial arts is unparalleled. and I am wondering if there is anyone in the Prime Minister's manor who could be your opposition. If you want to kill me, I have nothing to say, but I do have one thing I want to make clear. When have I ever bullied Yu Fu? He was all too eager to love Yu Fu, so how could he bring himself to bully her? Yu Hu sneered, then when your little Emperor Ning wanted to make Yu Fu the Empress, why did you, the dignified leader of the cabinet, not speak up to dissuade him? Don't tell me that you are unable to persuade him. I know that little Emperor Ning listens to you the most. Yin Shuo was shocked for a moment. There are other reasons for that matter. I have my own difficulties. I can only tell you that regardless of the situation, I would never allow another man to steal Yu Fu away. Including your emperor? Naturally. Yu Hu partially believed him and partially doubted him, slightly easing her grip. Yin Shuo was able to breathe a little easier when the grip around his neck suddenly tightened once more. Even if what you said was true, I can't forgive you. After all, when comparing you and Jiyu Shubai, I like Jiyu Shubai a little more. Anonymous Report, Part 2. Anonymous Report, Part 2. Yu Fu finally left Yin Jiao's courtyard after being begged countless times by the guards and headed toward the outer study. Arriving at the courtyard, she saw Yin Yang hurriedly walk in and shout, "Let go of my son." She stood at the door and heard a commotion inside. Yu Hu turned and saw a frail old man walk into the room with the support of a cane. She slightly frowned. This is the former Prime Minister Yin? Yin Yang instantly saw Yin Shuo on the sofa with his face turning purple. He was being choked by Yu Hu, and it looked like he might not last much longer. Even if he had always been a stoic person, he was still quite frantic. That would be this old one. Immortal practitioner of medicine, if you have something to say, please say it. Why use your hands? Yin Shuo's consciousness was hazy, his eyes partially opened. Seeing Yin Yang, he thought that he was mistaken. He was completely disappointed in his son, so why would he rush over to save his life? This had to be an illusion that he was seeing while on the verge of death. Yu Hu had heard a bit about Yin Yang, but he was different from the stern and shrewd image mentioned in the rumors. The Yin Yang in front of her was an ordinary old man whose only concern was his son's safety. None of his majesty or sternness could be seen. All that remained was his love of his family. Yu Hu temporarily released Yin Shuo to give some face to the old man. I respect former Prime Minister for having been an official. You were once a loyal official who loved his country, so how could you condone your son's collaboration with little Emperor Ning to harm another loyal subject, oppose the late emperor's will, and even try to steal another official's wife? Yu Fu heard this from the door and silently nodded, thinking to herself that Yu Hu was usually a playful person, thus it was a really big deal for her to speak so reasonably. Yin Yang might be completely at a loss over what she was saying. Sure enough, Yin Yang fell silent for a moment before saying, "This family is unfortunate, and teaching the young is a father's duty. The puppy's faults are the result of the father's faults. If immortal practitioner of medicine is getting revenge for Marquis Gu's manor, please come at this old one instead." Yin Shuo slowly woke up from his daze and heard the last part of what Yin Yang had said. He was stunned. Had he misheard? Yin Yang was actually willing to sacrifice himself to protect him? It turned out that he was still worried about his son. Yu Hu felt the goosebumps on her arm. She had a long-lasting problem. The one thing that she could not bear was seeing others act affectionately, thus seeing Yin Yang's actions, she could no longer bring herself to continue. Despite clearly knowing that father and son were the same, as they had both caused harm to Marquis Gu's manor, she still could not continue. Turning around, she saw Yu Fu standing at the door. She gave Yu Fu a look, and the latter knowingly walked in. "Senior disciple sister, it's getting late. Let's go back to the manor." Yu Fu gave her a way out, and Yu Hu accepted it. She viciously glared at Yin Shuo. "On account of the old man, I will spare your life. If you dare to bully Yu Fu or frame Marquis Gu's manor again, I will definitely come and take your life." After saying this, she dragged Yu Fu out. "Say, with me threatening him like this, do you think that he will change?" On the carriage ride back, Yu Hu thought back to the scene from earlier and felt that it had been insufficient. How about I find a chance to choke him again to make him a little more frightened? Yu Fu quickly said, enough, enough, you nearly choked him to death today. That should be enough of a threat. I'm just afraid that Yin Shuo is not the type of person to have a change of heart after being threatened. It's possible that rather than changing for the better, he will just improve the protection around him to keep senior disciple sister from causing him more trouble. What? You who refused to relent, if I had known that sooner, I would have just killed that bastard to completely resolve the issue. Yu Fu thought for a bit and then said, but senior disciple sister threatening him was good. It will keep him from thinking that Marquis Gu's manor only acts honestly and won't act against him directly. Yu Hu, the people of Marquis Gu's manor were all honest people, while she was the only one who would use these sorts of methods. After she and Yu Fu left, Yin Shuo lay on the sofa with his eyes closed. His thoughts raced endlessly. A subordinate entered to report, young sir, the people arranged on the road to the west will likely be unusable. Marquis Gu's heir left with a procession of 1,000 soldiers. This subordinate also inquired around, and Princess Xinjiang also dispatched 200 of her personal guards, and they are following along behind them. Based on our numbers, I fear that they won't present much of an obstacle. Oh, Marquis Jiyu is willing to take a risk and mobilize his troops for the sake of protecting Jiyu Shubai. Yu Fu also provided him with some of her own people. That Jiyu Shubai is naturally lucky with so many people wanting to protect him. The subordinate could hear the resentment in his words, thus said, when Master heard that the immortal practitioner of medicine wanted to kill young Sir, he immediately rushed here to protect young Sir. Young Sir is also loved. Master still cares about you. Yin Shuo did not say anything else. Just as the subordinate thought that he had fallen asleep, he spoke once more, there's no need for us to act on Jiyu Shubai's side. Kuan Wushong will naturally make his move. Last time, Marquis Jiyu crossed the border and destroyed Western Kuan's main force, and that gave him an excuse to station troops on Western Kuan's border. A dead camel was still larger than a horse, and with him acting, there is a chance of success. The subordinate hesitantly said, but Kuan Wushong is still Princess Xinjiang's fellow disciple. He has profound feelings for Princess Xinjiang. Will he really be able to kill Marquis Gu's heir? It's because he has profound feelings for Yu Fu that he cannot tolerate Jiyu Shubai's continued existence. Yin Shuo suddenly opened his eyes and faintly smiled. More importantly, the Crown Prince of Western Kuan is pressuring him. Last time, his army suffered a horrific defeat, and he turned a fertile area around Zhuguan into a wasteland. Everyone was furious, so without my help, he will soon be suppressed by the Crown Prince, Kuan Junyu, to the point that he can no longer stand back up. In this sort of situation, would he dare to spare Jiyu Shubai? The subordinate understandingly smiled. This subordinate understands. Even if he doesn't want to kill Marquis Gu's heir, for the sake of opposing Western Kuan's Crown Prince, he has no choice but to accept young Sir's assistance. Yin Shuo closed his eyes once more. People cannot be themselves in court, and being a prince is both a blessing and a curse. If Kuan Wushong wants to continue living happily, he has to accept working with me. The world will go crazy over profits, and two people who shared a common enemy would work together to obtain victory. Eastern Ling was destined to never be peaceful again. Eldest brother sent a letter back. They have already reached Zhuguan. Jiyu Xiong cheerfully charged into the room with the letter, and everyone came out to take a look at Jiyu Shubai's letter. Knowing that his journey was peaceful, they felt much more at ease. Jiyu Huaijiang quickly skimmed through the letter and slightly furrowed his brow upon seeing something. Yu Fu hastily said, "Head General, is something wrong?" "There isn't anything." Jiyu Huaijiang paused for a moment. Shubai's letter said that Western Kuan has border guards. It must be a result of us crossing the border last time. Emperor Kuan has become vigilant, thus he sent border guards to the region. Jiyu Yi craned his neck and looked through the letter. All of the guards added together, there are fewer than 100,000 soldiers. They have the nerve to call this a border guard. Our Jiyu family's army on the border numbers no fewer than 300,000 troops. Why is father worried? I'm not worried about the border guards. It's just that the general leading the guards seems very familiar. You all recognize him. Jiyu Huaijiang said this and handed the letter to Yu Fu. Yu Fu carefully read through it. It was none other than Kuan Wushong. Thinking of the methods employed by Kuan Wushong the last time the two countries fought, Yu Fu could not help but frown. Head General is worried that Kuan Wushong will repeat what he did last time? Kuan Wushong? Jiyu Juji received the letter and wondered. As a prince, he now leads the border guards. This is banishment. It seems that the crown prince, Kuan Junyu, has regained power in Western Kuan's court. Jiyu Xiong was confused and said, "Second brother, didn't Kuan Wushong also lead the battle during last year's fighting? How do you know that this was banishment? Times of war are different from times outside of war. The situation is completely different." Jiyu Hanmo continued on, saying, "During times of war, Kuan Wushong led Western Kuan's grand army, which meant that he had power and influence. Leading the border guards when they are not at war means that he has lost power and influence. If you don't believe it, just think it over carefully. When has father ever gone to the border when there wasn't a war?" Jiyu Xiong became pensive, so it was like that. Indeed, every time that news of a war breaking out reached us, father and elder brothers would rush to the border. The ones stationed at the border are generals of lower ranks. Jiyu Huaijiang nodded. It seems that this is a result of Western Kuan's massive defeat during last year's battle. Aside from the Liu siblings, who led the battle at the start, Kuan Wushong, as the substitute general, also became implicated because of his status as a prince. Jiyu Wenqing quietly thought to himself that this was not good. Why did it have to be him? If he uses poison on the army like he did last time, won't eldest brother be in danger? Kuan Wushong would surely be resentful from his previous defeat at the hands of the Jiyu family's army. This time, when he hears that Jiyu Shubai has arrived at the border, would he take that opportunity to strike? If he could hurt Jiyu Shubai a bit, even, his position in Western Kuan's court could be restored. Everyone felt that the situation was more and more dangerous when they suddenly heard Qian report. "Lord Marquis, Middle Assistant Imperial Censor Lord Qi from the Imperial Censorate has come seeking a meeting. He says that he has something important to ask Lord Marquis." Jiyu Huaijiang said, "Quickly invite him in and serve him some tea." The imperial censors visited countless court officials, and most felt a little anxious. The imperial censors had a duty to investigate court officials, and they normally would not visit if one did nothing wrong. Jiyu Huaijiang was an honest and upright official. Naturally, he was not worried. Jiyu Juji stepped forward and said, "Father, let me go and see Lord Qi. If there's nothing, it will be fine. If there is still something, father can be called at that time." Jiyu Huaijiang waved his hand. "It wasn't a low-level censor that came. It's a middle assistant imperial censor. It wouldn't be right if you went." Middle assistant imperial censor was a deputy imperial censor position. In court, they were second-rank officials. Aside from chief imperial censor Ji Daogong, he was the highest-ranked member of the imperial censorate. Since he personally came to visit, there was certain to be an important matter. Jiyu Huaijiang decided to personally see him, and not even Jiyu Juji could stop him. Based on his qualifications and status, it would indeed have been a little improper for him to see a second-rank official in Jiyu Huaijiang's stead. If it had been Jiyu Shubai, it would have been fine. "Then father, you go ahead. We can continue discussing the matter involving Kuan Wushong in detail when father returns." Qian led Lord Qi to the main hall of the front courtyard, and Jiyu Huaijiang arrived shortly after that. Lord Qi immediately stood up and cupped his hands. "Lord Marquis Jiyu, this lowly official came uninvited and has caused a disruption." Jiyu Huaijiang motioned for him to sit. "There's no need for Lord Qi to be so courteous. If you have something to say, please say it directly." He was stoic and upright by nature, and this made Lord Qi feel a little uneasy. He had served in the imperial censorate for many years, and he had visited many court officials, and they would always be shocked or flustered when they saw him. Nobody was perfect. There was always a bit of corruption or abuse of power from people who held court positions. Nobody dared to guarantee that they would not be reported to the imperial censorate. Lord Qi looked into Jiyu Huijiang's eyes and instantly felt that this person was an exception. He really was not afraid of being investigated because he was a flawless person. There was nothing improper for him to fear being dredged up. Lord Qi was a little hesitant, regretting that he had come to Marquis Gu's manor, but he had no choice but to come. Based on Jiyu Huijiang's standing, it would have been even more impolite to send a lower-ranked imperial censor. He had no choice but to make the visit himself. He slowly pulled out a stack of papers from his sleeve and placed them in front of Jiyu Huijiang with both hands. "Lord Marquis, please take a look at these. You must not get angry. This lowly official has just come to ask some questions and have no other intentions." Jiyu Huijiang received the papers and found that all of the papers were the same. They all had the same thing written on them. These 5 papers were reports. The space for the sender of the letter was empty, and the content of the report was that Marquis Gu's manor had colluded with Western Kuan and committed treason. Jiyu Huijiang looked over the report and did not even flinch. Lord Qi sat next to him and was feeling extremely anxious. He did not even know what to do with his hands. He was an imperial censor, yet he was even more nervous than the person being investigated. This was truly a first. Jiyu Huijiang calmly finished reading the report and then handed the report back to Lord Qi. "None of the report is true. The report says that the multicolored gem comes from Western Kuan's jade mine, but that is not accurate. The mine lies in Zhu Mountain on the border between Western Kuan and Eastern Ling. Zhu Mountain has a gentle slope on Western Kuan's side and a steep cliff on Eastern Ling's side. Normally speaking, Zhu Mountain is very hard for Eastern Ling's citizens to climb. For the sake of making it easier for our Jiyu family's army to scout the enemy, we often have soldiers make the dangerous ascent up the mountain. This Marquis once personally climbed the mountain to observe the enemy situation and nearly succumbed to an ambush by Western Kuan." Lord Qi's ears perked up, eagerly etching every word that Jiyu Huijiang said into his mind. Jiyu Huijiang continued, "That's why those 2 multicolored gems do not prove that this Marquis colluded with Western Kuan. The multicolored gem is indeed rare, so it was quite surprising to this Marquis that we found 2 so quickly back to back. If it said that Western Kuan wanted to give this Marquis a gift to win this Marquis over, they might not have had the good fortune to find 2 gems." Lord Qi hastily nodded. "Lord Marquis is right. This lowly official came to ask some questions and hope that Lord Marquis will not take offense." This lowly official absolutely did not think that Lord Marquis colluded with the enemy. Jiyu Huijiang chuckled and said, "It's fine. Since someone filed a report, the Imperial Censorate should investigate. Lord Qi didn't do anything wrong. There's also no need for this Marquis to get angry. As for the second piece of evidence mentioned by the report saying that this Marquis crossed the border with Western Kuan to collude with Western Kuan, this is even more absurd." He raised his hand and picked up his teacup to moisten his throat, as he continued, "The report says that if this Marquis had not colluded with Western Kuan, this Marquis would not have dared to cross the border. But at that time, this Marquis led the Jiyu family's army across the border to slaughter 200,000 of Western Kuan's troops. Lord Qi should know that Western Kuan has a vast territory but is sparsely populated. Its military force was already lacking, and it could only establish a fighting force through its local customs. If this Marquis had colluded with Western Kuan, how could Emperor Ning be willing to relinquish half of their fighting force to accumulate accomplishments for the Jiyu family's army? As a civil official, Lord Qi did not have a great understanding of military affairs. Fortunately, Jiyu Huijiang made it very easy to understand. Jiyu Huijiang continued, "This Marquis does not intend to brag in front of Lord Qi, but this Marquis has guarded the border for multiple decades and have never lost a battle. Could it be that this Marquis has been colluding with Western Kuan since the age of 20? Could it be that Western Kuan bought this Marquis with the goal of improving this Marquis' image as a god of war without any intention of expanding their own country? As for the third piece, Lord Marquis, there's no need to continue." Lord Qi immediately raised his hand to stop him, standing up and bowing to Jiyu Huijiang. This lowly official initially just came to question Lord Marquis as a formality. This lowly official has served the imperial censorate for many decades and can immediately tell if a court official is hiding something. When this lowly official first saw Lord Marquis, this lowly official knew that Lord Marquis has a level mind and could not have possibly done something like collude with Western Kuan. Over the years, if not for the Jiyu family's army guarding the border with Western Kuan might have already trampled Eastern Ling underfoot. He bowed toward Jiyu Huijiang once more. Lord Marquis has kindly explained to this lowly official, but this lowly official can no longer bear to continue listening. There should never have been a need for Lord Marquis to explain, but the one to submit this anonymous report against Lord Marquis is truly a villain. Framing an honest person, how could this lowly official work in accordance with their wishes? The usually mild-mannered civil official suddenly became infuriated and threw the stack of papers to the ground. He then angrily stomped on them a few times. Jiyu Huijiang cupped his hands toward him. This Marquis thanks Lord Qi for your trust and praise, but for the sake of silencing everyone, would Lord Qi please carry out the investigation as normal? There's no need to hold back. Lord Qi had wanted to refuse, believing that there was no need to continue investigating someone like Jiyu Huijiang. Carefully thinking about it, he suddenly understood Jiyu Huijiang's intentions. The fact that the imperial censorate had received a report could not be completely hidden. Rather than one person believing Jiyu Huijiang and not carrying out an investigation, it would be better to carry out a thorough investigation and provide Jiyu Huijiang with justice. Either way, he was an honest and upright person. He was not afraid of being investigated. If he was investigated, it would prove his innocence. Lord Qi earnestly saluted. Yes, this matter will be handled as Lord Marquis requested. This lowly official will not allow anyone to ruin Lord Marquis' name and will definitely find the identity of the petty anonymous reporter. Ji Shenxian's suspicions. Ji Shenxian's suspicions starting from what seemed to be an insignificant report by an anonymous person, the investigation revealed more and more astonishing clues. Lord Qi was exceptionally busy and feeling overwhelmed by the number of clues that he could not determine the veracity of. He had no choice but to ask Ji Daogong's eldest son, Ji Shenxian, for assistance. The two worked together to take care of the clues involving Jiyu Huijiang. Lord Ji, there are so many clues against Lord Marquis Jiyu that it's truly hard to believe. This official cannot believe that Lord Marquis Jiyu would collude with Western Kuan and betray our country. The more Lord Qi sorted through clues, the more frustrated he became. As a result, he decided to just take a seat and pour himself a cup of tea to take a break. Ji Shenxian continued to read through the reports, looking through each page very carefully. Hearing his question, he looked up at Lord Qi. Why is Lord Qi so certain? My father once said that there are some people whose innocence cannot be seen through their eyes. Only by carefully examining the evidence can we avoid being deceived. Lord Qi heard him mention Ji Daogong and immediately sat up straight. Old Lord Qi is indeed correct, but, he paused for a moment and looked suspiciously at Ji Shenxian. Could it be that Lord Ji believes that it's possible that Lord Marquis Jiyu did indeed collude with the enemy, or did old Lord Ji say something to you? Ji Shenxian put down the report and moved his body around a bit, sitting down next to Lord Qi. Lord Qi, please don't misunderstand. My father has not asked about the situation in court since getting sick. Naturally, he did not say anything to me. As for me, I also have faith in Marquis Gu's character as Lord Qi does. Lord Qi looked at him with something on his mind. It seemed that he had some suspicions about him, saying that Ji Daogong had not asked about what was happening in court. After a long pause, he asked, since Lord Ji also trusts Lord Marquis Gu's character, what are we going through all of these messy reports for? It's clear that these reports are forged, so we shouldn't bother investigating them. In the end, we can say that we could not find any problems with Marquis Jiyu. Won't that be fine? Ji Shenxian nodded while thinking about it. It seemed that he was agreeing with his opinion, but looking closer, it seemed that he was not completely agreeing. Lord Qi frowned suspiciously, as Ji Shenxian said, I am looking through these reports so carefully not for the sake of finding evidence against Marquis Jiyu. I know that we won't be able to find anything at all. I was thinking of looking for some clues on who submitted this forged evidence and the one who submitted the anonymous report. Up to this moment, we still don't know the truth. He glanced at Lord Chi. Does Lord Chi not know who is framing Marquis Gu? Not only are they framing Marquis Gu, but they are also treating our imperial censorate as worthless fools. How can we tolerate that? Lord Chi slowly nodded. This official also feels this way, but no matter how I investigate this report, I couldn't find a single clue. The ones acting behind the scenes are truly too much, acting without letting a single clue leak through. They are truly too thorough. Ji Shenxian smiled and did not refute this. Lord Chi felt that his smile was a little strange. It looked as if he was hesitating to say something, thus he said, Lord Ji, is there something that you wish to say but cannot say to me? You and I are of a similar age, and I have worked with old Lord Ji for 7 or 8 years, thus we know each other quite well. Could it be that you still don't trust my character? Ji Shenxian hastily said, No, Lord Chi has misunderstood. There is something that I don't know how to talk about, and I am afraid that saying it will cause you trouble. I am also worried that Lord Chi will be unhappy to hear it. If there is something, just say it. Aside from you and me, there are no other people here. No matter what you say, only the heavens, the earth, you, and I will know. I absolutely will not get upset. Ji Shenxian hesitated for a moment. Very well, Lord Chi said that the person working behind the scenes is too much. Lord Chi, please think carefully about it. From the time under the late emperor to now, how many powerful ministers have our imperial censorate not investigated? Lord Chi thought for a bit. That's right, isn't the former prime minister one of them? Who else could possibly be as powerful as the former prime minister? Ji Shenxian smiled. Unless there are spies in the imperial censorate who are spying on us and deliberately trying to muddy the waters to keep us confused, the other possibility is that this person's influence is greater than the former prime minister's. It's so great that we subjects have no way of doing anything. Lord Chi immediately leaped up from his seat, a look of shock on his face. Pointing at Ji Shenxian, he was unable to speak for a long time. You are alluding to. You. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly heard the sound of footsteps coming from outside, as a group of palace servants entered with a decree. In accordance with His Majesty's decree, Middle Assistant Imperial Censor Lord Chi is to visit the Imperial study for an audience. Lord Chi subconsciously glanced at Ji Shenxian. He finally understood that what Ji Shenxian had alluded to was most likely true. This subject greets Your Majesty. Oh, my dear official Chi has come. Please sit. Let's sit and speak. Ning Chengji lay on a bed in the inner room. Seeing Lord Chi arrive, he got up and got out of bed. He then politely invited Lord Chi to sit down for a chat. Lord Chi knew that he was not a ruler who treated his court officials with respect. His politeness today made him feel more certain about Ji Shenxian's suspicions. He could not stop the sweat from beading up on his brow. Bowing, he cupped his hands, replying to Your Majesty, this subject will answer while standing. If Your Majesty has any orders for this subject will do everything possible to fulfill them. After saying this, he subconsciously looked up and found that the bruises on Ning Chengji's face had gotten much better. Only his cheeks remained slightly swollen and had not fully recovered. Ning Chengji saw that he was being humble and did not continue to insist. He seemed to be in an extremely good mood. Who knew if he was pleased because his facial injuries had almost completely healed, or if he was pleased with the excuse that he had used to summon Lord Chi. We heard that the Imperial Censorate received a major case. Dear official Chi, why have you not come to report to us? Lord Chi hastily said, this subject was uneasy. This subject does not know which major case Your Majesty is speaking about. Your Majesty, please be more specific. Achem. You're playing dumb with us. Ning Chengji stood up from the bed and causally picked up a brush from the desk. Walking over to the window, he teased the bird inside a golden cage. Aside from the case involving Marquis Gu, is there another official that could be considered as being part of a major case? Large beads of sweat started to roll down his face. It was as if Lord Chi's brow had been licked by flames, but his heart seemed to have been dunked in a tub of frigid water. He could almost guarantee Ji Shenxian's suspicions that His Majesty was the one framing Jiyu Huijiang. This seemed to be the truth. The bird inside the cage flew back and forth from the brush, but the golden cage was only so large. It could not escape and reluctantly let out a few plaintive chirps. Ning Chengji laughed. This damn bird only starts chirping after we tease it for a long time. If not for its singing sounding so nice, we would have lost interest in teasing it long ago. Lord Qi raised his head and cast a look of pity toward the bird in the cage. He thought to himself that Ning Chengji could not even tell the difference between a bird singing and crying. How stupid. After pausing for a moment, his voice became much calmer than before, replying to Your Majesty, the matter involving Lord Marquis shows signs of someone acting maliciously to frame him, and the report was false. That's why this subject did not report to Your Majesty. This subject is currently preparing to investigate the person responsible for submitting the false reports. If the person responsible for framing a loyal court official is another court official, it will definitely cause harm to Your Majesty's country. This subject asks Your Majesty to decree for the Imperial Court of Justice to investigate. Bang! The brush was forcefully thrown to the ground, interrupting Lord Qi's statement. Eunuch Kai stood to the side and inhaled sharply in shock. He subconsciously stepped forward to pick it up but found that the delicate hairs on the brush had become a mess. A brush worth hundreds of taels of gold had been ruined. He quietly thought to himself that it was a pity. Holding the brush, he raised his head and found that Ning Chengji's face was turning blue. Impudence, do you know your crime? Thump, thump, the dull sounds came back to back, as Lord Qi and Eunuch Kai dropped to their knees in fear at the same time. Ning Chengji glanced at Eunuch Kai with displeasure, and the latter understood that he was not the one being yelled at, thus he hastily stood back up. Lord Qi knew that he was the one being yelled at. He also understood that this was frustration and embarrassment that was turning into anger, thus he straightened his back. This subject is muddled. May this subject ask Your Majesty what this subject is guilty of? Ning Chengji was holding in a lot of anger, as he internally cussed out this middle assistant imperial censor for his stupidity. Those worthless old things in the imperial censorate were all so stubborn and unrepentant. As expected of someone who had learned from that infuriating Ji Daogong. If not for Ji Daogong helping out in the ruling against the eldest prince and now being confined to bed with illness, he would have found an excuse to get rid of Ji Daogong. Who knew that Lord Qi would be even more lacking in tact. He anxiously paced back and forth, only speaking after a long pause. What we mean is that you still haven't carefully investigated Marquis Jiyu. How can you say that it wasn't true? Isn't it possible that it's true? Colluding with the enemy and betraying the country is a grave crime. You dare to say that he is guiltless after just casually investigating a little? If the end result of the investigation is that Marquis Jiyu is guilty, Lord Qi, do you want to be buried with him? Marquis Jiyu could not possibly be guilty. Lord Qi nearly spat that out. Fortunately, he did not. He forced himself to cup his hands. Then does Your Majesty have any suggestions? Ning Chengji's gaze subconsciously turned to the screen. After looking at it for a while, he finally turned around and said to Lord Qi, how about this? Investigate the two cases at the same and investigate carefully. If Marquis Jiyu is innocent, uncover the identity of the person who filed the report. If he is guilty, it absolutely must not be tolerated. He then looked at the screen once more and then said, we will do as you asked and send someone from the Imperial Court of Justice to aid the Imperial Censorate. The truth behind this case must be uncovered. Lord Qi frowned and did not know why Ning Chengji was so angry upon hearing his request for assistance from the Imperial Court of Justice earlier but was now telling him to investigate. Regardless, with the Imperial Court of Justice helping in the investigation, Jiyu Huijiang would be able to stop carrying the burden on his own. Lord Qi respectfully complied, and Ning Chengji impatiently waved his hand. He then sat back down on the bed, and Lord Qi slowly retreated. Once he left, there was movement behind the screen, as Yin Shuo walked out. It was spring, and it was starting to get warmer, but he was gearing a robe with a high collar. Ning Chengji looked at him closely. What are you wearing? Is something wrong with your neck? After saying this, he reached out and found that Yin Shuo's neck was red under the collar. Looking at it, it was clear that he had been choked. Ning Chengji was given a fright. What happened to you? Did someone try to kill you? Speak, and we will get you justice. Yin Shuo simply said. It was immortal practitioner of medicine Yu Hu. Oh, it was her. He had just been saying that he would get justice for Yin Shuo, but upon hearing that it was Yu Hu, he immediately abandoned the promise. If it was her, don't make a fuss about it. The people of Immortals Valley, they have always done as they pleased. She is Yu Fu's senior disciple sister, and she treated our face. We cannot punish her. Whether it was for the reasons that he listed, or if he was considering Yu Hu's beauty, Yin Shuo understood. Fortunately, he never planned on doing anything against Yu Hu, thus he said, Your Majesty, you acted too impulsively in front of Lord Qi, and that just makes you look guilty. You are the emperor. If the ruler wants a subject to die, that subject would have no choice but to die. More importantly, this subject helped provide you with so much evidence of Marquis Ji Yu colluding with the enemy, so why should you feel guilty? Ning Chengji muttered, We did not want Marquis Ji Yu to die. Though we do not like that he has a lofty position and wields great influence, it cannot be denied that Eastern Ling's borders are peaceful because of his protection. We are just using him to threaten Yu Fu. When Yu Fu agrees to become the empress, we will start respecting Marquis Ji Yu as my father-in-law. He had always been naive, thinking that establishing a marriage would mean that there would be a strong relationship and that Ji Yu Huijiang becoming the emperor's father-in-law would no longer be a threat. It was just like how he trusted Yin Shuo. Yin Shuo faintly smiled. It was a cold smile that disappeared before it could fully form. Ning Chengji suddenly said, Right, why did you just have us agree to have the Imperial Court of Justice help investigate? Pei Zheng from the Imperial Court of Justice is renowned for his integrity. His name fits his personality. There's also that incredible investigation department. If this matter is handed to the Imperial Court of Justice to investigate, it's likely that it will ruin our scheme. Your Majesty, don't worry. Yin Shuo was confident. This subject has a better choice from the Imperial Court of Justice than Pei Zheng, and this subject will make a recommendation to Your Majesty. Your Majesty can just find any excuse to transfer Pei Zheng from his current position and then install this person in his position. Ning Chengji curiously said, Who is this person you speak of? The former minister from the Board of Rights, Liu Zhen. He is the father of young Miss Liu Ruyi. Liu Ruyi? Ning Chengji was confused. He had a vague impression of the name Liu Ruyi, but he could not remember who that was. Who is this Liu Ruyi? Yin Shuo looked at him fixedly. It's the one who offended Princess Xinjiang during the New Year's banquet. It's the Liu Ruyi whom Your Majesty sentenced to death. Preposterous. Father, you need to take care of yourself. The most important thing is for you to not get angry. Chen Chuxiu patted Chen Jilao's back, and the latter violently coughed a few more times, saying with a shaky voice, His Majesty actually trusts Yin Shuo's slander, transferring Pei Zhang without even consulting the cabinet. Put simply, he was a promising official, yet this loyal subject was sent to do idle work. On the other hand, the mediocre Liu Zhen has been assigned to the Imperial Court of Justice. How is he worthy of serving in the Imperial Court of Justice? Chen Jilaro was heartbroken. So what if we manage to preserve the cabinet? His Majesty is still being led around by Yin Shuo. Where is there any room for us cabinet ministers in his eyes? I am a cabinet minister, but I cannot do anything for my country. I might as well be dead. Father, what nonsense are you saying? Chen Chuxiu did not pay any attention to courtesy, thinking to himself that gentle words would not have any effect. As a result, he decided to take a stand and try to accuse Chen Jilao. You are only concerned with leaving behind a good legacy before you die. You don't care about Eastern Ling as a country or about the court, do you? You are the biggest impediment to Yin Shuo in the cabinet. If you die, wouldn't Yin Shuo be overjoyed? Young sir, how can you speak like that to master? A servant stepped forward to stop him but was pushed aside by Chen Chuxiu. Don't try to stop me. Either way, I will soon be an orphan with nobody to take care of me. Can you not let me say a bit more to vent my frustration? Father, you have always taught me to respect the country and ruler. Now, you have stopped taking care of yourself and beg for death. Can this be considered loyalty? Chen Jilaro was embarrassed by what he said, and he slowly calmed down. He no longer continued to ask for death. Chen Chuxiu helplessly sighed and finally stepped forward to help his father up, putting on a gentle tone. All right, I know that father is a loyal man. It's just that the current disastrous situation in court has darkened your worldview. Isn't that it? It's fine. We still have hope. There are still many loyal officials in court, like Lord Marquis Jiyu and Princess Zhenjiang. Aren't they still doing their best to improve the situation? Chen Jilaro slowly stood up with a hand on his chest. He looked at Chen Chuxiu with a strange gaze. After a long pause, he slowly said, "You've grown up. Even if father really did die, I can feel at ease. Why was it that after all was said and done, he still sought to die?" Chen Chuxiu was extremely anxious. Fortunately, Chen Jilaro quickly followed this up, saying, "Don't worry. Father understands. Although father is weak, I cannot just let this young ruler do as he pleases without doing something. His Majesty might not be old enough and is easily misled by traitors. If I don't provide assistance, could it be that I should allow that villain Yin Shaw to provide assistance? Until I see that villain lose power and His Majesty repent, this old bag of bones will never fall apart." Chen Chuxiu let out a sigh of relief. It's good if you can think like this. Who cares if you're old or not? Look at how old Lord Ji is, yet he is still standing in court. Just as he said this, a servant entered to report, "Young sir, a girl has come to see you. She says that she is your friend." "My friend? What is she like?" The servant thought for a moment. She was wearing a set of plain clothes, and she came here on foot. It didn't look like she was a young miss from a prominent family. Chen Chuxiu reached an understanding but did not dare be certain. He hastily stood up and said, "All right, I will go out immediately. Take good care of father." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.